Mariner Center Expansion Committee meetings. Today is Thursday, February the 4th, 2021. And I see we have most of the council here. I'm going to list off everybody that's on this committee if anybody's watching. We're going to start off first with the Town of Yarmouth. We have with us Mayor Pam Mood. We also have with us Deputy Mayor Steve Barry. And we also have with us is Councillor Gildaire. So welcome. From the Municipality of District of Argyle, we have Warden Danny Muse with us. I just received word that Deputy Warden Nicole Albright is currently on her way. She got out of school late, so she will be joining us very shortly. And also we have Councillor Guy Surratt. So welcome, councillors from the Municipality District of Argyle. And I'm the warden of the Municipality of District of Yarmouth. My name's John Cunningham. We also have with us Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, same last name, not related. And also we have with us would be Councillor Daniel Allen. Also attending ex officio would be CAO Victoria Brooks, CAO Jeff Gushu, and CAO Alain Muse. So welcome everybody. I'm excited to get this committee underway and get started. So we'll move on to item number 2, the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? I see 2 hands up. And the first one I seen was Councillor Guy Surratt, and then I'll acknowledge Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Guy, you have the floor.
Yes, there's a gentleman, I believe, that's there that you didn't mention. Maybe you could introduce him. I believe he's with the Mariner Center.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Duram. We also have with us would be Duram. I don't really want to say your last name, Duram. I cannot pronounce it, but
I'll jump in. Duram Hadid. Thanks.
Duram Hadid. Thank you very much. Now I'll probably remember how to pronounce your last name.
Thanks, Guy.
He's the general manager of the Mariner Center, so welcome. Trevor.
Yes, just like to add to the agenda, Bridge Committee, next meeting.
Bridge Committee next meeting. I see on there's item 5.4, CAO Alain Muse had added that. I'm going to ask Alain, is that in reference to the next Bridge Committee meeting, or is it something different?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think that Trevor's ad would fall under that for sure. It was just the other component of this group, and I just didn't see an agenda item, so it has to be added. So Trevor, I think that's the place, I guess. Perfect.
We're on the same page. Thanks so much.
Yes, I remember some discussion about that before the meeting, so I kind of figured it was coming. So I think as CAO has alluded to, that needed to be added, so it is. All right, is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as circulated. Moved by Mayor Pam Mood and seconded by Warden Danny Muse. Motion on the floor to approve the agenda as circulated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Item number 3, approval of the minutes. The last time that I see that we had minutes was from October the 15th of 2020. You all have that in your package. Is there any errors or omissions in those meeting minutes of those who attended the committee at that time aware of? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as circulated. Anyone want to make a motion?
So move.
Moved by Councillor Guy Surratt, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Motion on the floor to approve the minutes of October 15th, 2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 4, old business 4.1, subcommittee appointments. As you all know, the municipalities had added one new member per council each. I'm wondering if there's a CAO that would like to speak to this. If so, please speak up. Victoria or Jeff?
Yeah, so I will, John, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so this was initiated, or I guess came initially from the town when after the election, town council was appointing its committees, and there was interest from the town council side of having an additional appointee to this committee. And so we made the request. I brought the issue to the other CAOs. We agreed to go back to our councils and proposed to expand the membership of this from 6 to 9, 3 from each municipal unit. And in January, that was agreed to by Modi and Argyle. So all of the appointees are present here today. So that's how we got to having more members. And so how does that affect the subcommittees? Well, when we started out, it was the wardens, mayor, and their deputies made up this committee. And so the wardens and the mayor were essentially the new build subcommittee, and the deputies were the bridge subcommittee. But now that we have more members, non-members, not just 6, and some changes of faces and roles, it's appropriate to reappoint those subcommittees to continue the work.
All right, so that's going to be done in item 4.1.1 under the previous new builds subcommittee and 4.1.2. So that's when we are going to appoint, I'm assuming.
That would be an appropriate spot. Yep.
Yeah. So is there any other discussion on that item 4.1? Thank you very much. If someone has something to say, please put up your hand and hold it up pretty close to your face. There is 12, 14 members here that I'm watching, so sometimes I might miss you, and I apologize if I do. If you'd like to speak, put your hand up, and hopefully I'll catch you quick enough. Zoom meetings are wonderful things sometimes. Item 4.1.1, previous new build subcommittee, which included Mayor Mood as the chair, Warden Danny Muse, and myself at the time, Deputy Warden John Cunningham. So I guess my question to the committee members and or ex officio sitting on this meeting is, how would you like to set up this new build subcommittee? Would you wish to keep it the same? We keep the wardens and mayor, or would you like to add any members, or what's the wishes? I'm open to suggestions. Madam Mood.
Yeah. I just have a question. So we have the overarching committee, right? We have the Mariner Center Expansion Committee, and then we have 2 subs under that. Correct?
Correct.
So do we not start with the overextending one?
The overextending one, from my understanding from the terms of reference, included all of the members that are appointed by councils. And then the 2 subcommittees, that's when they would be split up. Please correct me if I'm wrong, CAOs.
Yeah.
So this is the expansion committee. This group assembled here, the 9 people, with the CAOs as resources in Durham. This is the expansion committee. And there are, as you said, 2 subcommittees, the new build subcommittee and the bridge subcommittee. But so the members of this committee are known, it's the 9. What we don't know is who the members of the 2 subcommittees are.
Yeah, so what I'm asking is, are we doing this one over? Like, are we renominating chair and vice chair and all that stuff?
Well, first, I think we need to appoint the subcommittee members, and then the subcommittee decides who the chair is going to be when the committees meet. Madam CAO Brooks.
I think if I'm hearing Pam correctly, the question is, does the committee want to deal with the offices of chair and vice chair of this group of 14, as well as look at the subcommittees. I think if I'm hearing her correctly.
Yeah, because there's new people on this. Right?
Okay, then what I'm going to do then, if that's the case, I think it'd be prudent to answer, Madam Mayor, please correct me if I'm wrong. So what you're looking for is for an appointment of mayor or of a chair and a vice chair of this committee as we're sitting, correct?
Yes, because if we have new people on, then we need to redo, Guy's doing this.
Okay, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take calls from the floor to appoint a new chairman of this of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee, the main committee.
I would nominate Warden John Cunningham to stay on as the chairperson.
Trevor, you second that? Well, since I'm currently chairing it, I believe this is just a matter of process. I believe I can accept the nomination, so I will accept. So I'm going to go through 3 times. Is there any other nominations for chair of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee? Is there any other nominations for chair of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee? Third and final time. Is there any other nominations for chair of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion that nominations cease. Moved by Councillor Guy Surratt, seconded by Councillor Gildares. Motion on the floor for nominations to cease. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, now that that's done, sorry, Madam Mayor, I sort of misunderstood.
Okay,
So now, Madam Mayor, to go back to you again, what you were asking in regards to the process, are we going to be right now, or what are you looking for, nominations and or appointments to the 2 subcommittees? Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just thinking, in keeping with the process we just went through, the work of this group is really important, and it would probably be a good idea to continue with the vice chair position as well, just in case there's business to transact and we need to know kind of what the leadership structure is in the event you're not available.
Yes, absolutely. I forgot about that. All right, I'd entertain motions or nominations for vice chairman of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
I'll move Pam Mood for the vice chair.
Mayor Pam Mood, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Warden Danny Muse. Mayor Pam Mood, do you accept the nomination? Yes, she does. Moving on, is there any other nominations for vice chair of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee? Did I hear anything in the background? I'll repeat again. Is there any other nominations for the vice chair of the Mariner Center Expansion Committee? Third and final time, is there any other nominations for the Mariner Center Expansion Committee?
Would Gildares be interested?
You can nominate him, Guy, if you wish.
That's okay. I already saw his motion. That's good. I'm all set.
So you're not nominating him?
No.
Okay. So that was the third and final call. I'll entertain a motion for nominations to cease. Moved by Warden Danny Muse, seconded by Gildares for nominations to cease. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4.1.1. New build subcommittee. So my question to everybody on the panel here, what is your wishes? Do you wish to keep the same people appointed because they were here previously, or do you wish to appoint new members? Or what is the wishes of the group? Mayor Pam Mood.
I say we're doing this, we start again. We start over. That's the,
Mike, okay, my question to the CEO is a point of order on this. When it comes to subcommittees, does the main committee appoint the chairman and vice chair, or does the subcommittee itself appoint the chair and vice chair?
I'm thinking we have some flexibility because we're more or less pushing a restart. When we originally came together, that was spelt out in the terms of reference that went before the councils, but we're kind of pushing a refresh here. So I think it's at the pleasure of the group.
Warden Danny Muse.
I think that when you're going to subcommittees, usually that subcommittee will appoint a chair of their committee. It's probably not up to us to appoint a chair to another committee, because I would say that would be a responsibility of the committee itself to appoint a chair.
Councillor Daniel Allen, then Mayor Pam Mood.
I'm in agreement with Warden Danny Muse. I think it should fall into committees. The only thing I think is that we should be adding, we have new members here. I think it's just going to bring some more ideas to the fold. So I would like to see us just kind of divide. I guess we're going to divide up into two teams. Two teams to get these two subcommittees going, and then it'd be up to them to appoint their chair and their vice chair.
Okay, so my question to the panelists, sorry, Mayor Mood, you had your hand up.
I did. I think I agree with Danny and Daniel, but it's important that we vote on who's going to be on those subcommittees.
Oh, absolutely. So what I'm asking of the committee members would be, how would you like to set up those committees? Since there's 9 members here, would you like to see 5 members on the new build and 7 on the bridge, or vice versa, or 2 on the new build and 2 on the new build and 7 on the bridge? It's totally up to you, and I guess we have to go with those names. Councillor Geeseret.
6 and 6. If we're 12. I didn't count everybody here, but 6 and 6. That's 8.
Okay, is everyone in agreement with that? 6 and 6, Madam CAO?
So I think while in terms of workforce to do the work, yeah, we're 12, but it's important. The elected officials are the ones who will be making recommendations back out to the councillors. So I think that what we should focus on is where the elected officials are going to land, and then the staff can fill in and support where needed.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's the reason why I said like 7 and 2. I thought 9. So what's the wishes of the committee? Do you wish to, someone want to make a motion to name off some names to sit on the committee, and a number of names, or whatever the wish is? Warden Danny Muse.
I think the way it was set up before, you had the wardens on one and the deputies on the other, and I think that could stay the same. We just have to find a space now and decide whether we're going to have 2 extra on, well, we know we're going to have 2 extra on one, but we have to decide which committee we want 2, and the other one will be, the other committee will be just the 1 extra. So that's something I think we have to see, where we want the 2 extra and where we want and that's just my view. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be the wardens and deputies that are split up, but that's the way it was set up before. So maybe we should stay with that format.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I and again, I wasn't on the wasn't on the committee, certainly before, but having said that, I would think that we want to have a mix of wardens and deputy wardens on both, because it does, if the wardens are all on one of the two committees, it appears that one committee is more important than the other in term from a public perspective. We know they're both important pieces, and I think that may send the wrong message if in my view. And again, I wasn't present for the whole debate initially about the structure of the committee and where the wardens and deputy wardens were going to be. But again, that's a facet of it that I'd identify as being problematic.
Okay, so maybe what I should do is go around the table and see where everybody would like to sit. I think that might be appropriate from what I'm hearing so far. I'll start off with myself. I'd like to continue work on the new build subcommittee. So I guess I'll put my name on that. I'm going to go to the next person I see on my screen, which would be Councillor Gildares. Which subcommittee would you wish to sit on?
Yeah, my preference would be the new build committee.
Okay, so I'll put that down. I'm just going to put these down as numbers and we'll see where we all sit is what I'm doing. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham, you're the next one I see on my screen.
Right, my preference would be the new build, but I'd certainly sit on either committee where I'm needed.
You said new build first, so that's where I'm going to add you, one or the other. The next one I see on the list or on my screen is Warden Danny Muse. Where would you like to go?
I would just as soon stay on the committee that we've worked on so far, which is the new build, but we can't all be on the new build, I guess. If I may, I think it's important to have someone from each area so that we don't end up with one of the units not being on the committee. But I don't believe that would work. That I don't think we'll ever see that anyway. I think the way we're now, that there will always be someone from both. But my preference would be the new build.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down names and I'm actually taking that into account. The next one I see on my list would be one that held up their hand, Councillor Daniel Allen.
Yeah, I would prefer to stay on the bridge committee. I've been there. And I was just going to make a suggestion similar to what Danny was saying is really, couldn't we just keep who we've got on each committee and figure out a way to integrate the new, like Steve and Nicole and Trevor into the committees that we already have. Just a thought, we know that you and Pam and Danny were on the new build, and myself, Guy, and at the time Deputy Mayor Mooney was. So we could slide Steve right in there with us if we wanted, and we could add Nicole or add Trevor, or this is just a thought. Might save some time if the new people knew where they wanted to go, and then be up to them committees to reelect their new chairs, and we could just keep moving right on.
Well, I haven't seen anyone wanting to move yet, so I'm halfway through here now. So yeah, I put you down, Daniel, is on the bridge. So my next one I see on my list would be the mayor, Pam Mood. Would you like to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good where I am, but I also don't disagree with what Daniel said. Might be easy, but yeah, I'll stay on the new.
All right. The next one I see in line would be Deputy Mayor Steve Berry.
I'd like to be on the bridge, please.
The next one I see would be Deputy Warden Nicole Albright.
I would like to be on the new build if I could, please.
And the last but not least is Councillor Guy Surratt.
Well, where I see that we've got two new bridges in Surratt's Island, I'll stay on the bridge. I hope this is not live. Is it? Oh, no.
It is live. So by my count, I think I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the new and 3 on the old. Daniel?
So since Trevor was the gentleman that would go either way, why don't we swing him to our side and go five new, 4 old? And if that would be okay with Trevor Cunningham, if that would be okay with Deputy Warden Cunningham.
I'm a man of my word, absolutely.
You're a good guy, Trevor.
Now, at
Okay,
least one person thinks so. Thanks so much.
so what I have written down here is appointments to the new build would be myself, Gil. Geez, I can't even read my own writing. Danny Muse, Pam Mood, and Nicole. That's what I see there. And on the bridge, I see Daniel Allen, Steve, forgive me for using first names, Guy, and Trevor. Is everyone in agreement with that? Is there anyone who would like to switch? If not, I'd entertain a motion to appoint those names I just said to the various, either the new build, or would we need a motion for the new build committee and a motion for the bridge, or could it be all done in one? This is a question to the CAOs.
I would say all in one is fine, but I defer to Jeff and Ella if they've got a good argument for the other way.
Not a good one.
All right. So I'm going to ask the recording secretary, Vicki Pierce, do you have the names that I just listed off for each committee?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to appoint those members outlined to those 2 committees. Moved by Councillor Daniel Allens. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Guy Surratt. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Question?
Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So that gets rid of item 4.1.1 and item 4.2.2. So we'll move on to new business, item 5.1.
Excuse me. Can I, are we appointing chairs of these committees now? So that's done? Or are we-
No, it's from my understanding that the chair peoples and the vice chairpersons would be done by the subcommittees themselves.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So the question, John, is, I know it's later on the agenda for setting when the next bridge committee meeting is. If we selected it, well, if we selected a chair, that might be easier to achieve, or maybe those 4 people will just hash it out when we get to that item.
I would much rather they hash it out when they get to that item.
Okay, good.
I personally, as a new build committee member, would be uncomfortable appointing someone on a different committee. So we'll move on to item 5.1, building program workshop. Who has that item?
Mr. Chair, I can start, but it's going to be a team effort. So Jeff, Alain, Durham, and I are going to endeavor to walk you through a process that we're hoping will help the new build subcommittee, because this is coming to the main committee from the new build subcommittee. So on the agenda, there's just a little bit of context that reads, through their work with EXP, who are the consulting engineers and architects, the new build subcommittee recognizes that the main Mariner Center expansion group needs to confirm the spaces which are anticipated to be included in the expansion project. The previous proposal to government was too expensive. The subcommittee has struggled to reach a less expensive proposal that comes with a high level of confidence in providing the expected program spaces. And so we think we have a logical approach to going through this process. And so we each have a little role to play, as is laid out in the agenda. So I'm going to share my screen. and share with you what we think the goals for the workshop are. As soon as I pick the right screen from my computer here. Okay. Share screen. I don't want to pick the recipe for tonight's supper. That was just a little bit of humor to lighten. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. So trying to keep it, fairly simple and for everybody to understand what we're trying to achieve. So right out of the gate, there's a recognition that we have a lot of new people at the table to help us with this work. And so we're all new in different ways, in different roles, and at different levels of newness. So the thought was that through kind of a historical summary, we would endeavor to bring the members of the committee to a more even understanding of the context and the project itself. So Jeff's going to give us a little bit of a history lesson. And what we want to try to do is have the decision makers around the table and the support people like Duran and Alan, Jeff and myself kind of come to an agreement that we all are of a similar level of confidence in terms of our knowledge and a similar level of confidence in terms of our understanding and recognizing that it won't be perfect and we can work on maybe what some of the gaps are, but to try to get to something that's closer to even. The second goal would be to learn through observations of recent site visits to similar facilities. So Duran has spent a large part of his first 4 to 5 months in his role going to different facilities, talking with some colleagues, and he has some observations that could help us in our learning as we approach the work of the new build. Another goal is to choose and define specific program spaces. And that's essential in order to refine the new proposal that we want to submit to government for funding. We want to understand at some level what the cost of those space choices is likely to be. Alan's going to help us with that a little bit. And then at the end of the workshop, we just want to loop back and confirm that people are comfortable with where we sit in terms of achieving these goals. And to provide a space where we might need to go back, we might need to clarify. But I think it's really important, not just for the benefit of those who are doing the work, but for the benefit of those who are accountable to the residents to make sure that the message is clear and that we're kind of all pointing to the same true north. So we'll come back at the end and kind of reconfirm. So those are the goals for the little workshop. And I guess I would just more or less want to confirm by way of consensus that the group is on the same page with those. So I'm not really seeing anybody shaking their head no. So I think if we're all in agreement then that those are kind of the goals for the workshop. What I'd like to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. I'm not sure if he has audiovisual aids this afternoon or not. I did see a few teaser pieces earlier on, so I'm not sure if we're going to see them today or not. But Jeff, I think as a panelist, you have the ability to share your screen. So I'll hand it over to you if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, since John's not going to stop me, I'll just dive right in. So let me see if I can share my screen. Oh,
No, I'm here. I'm not going to stop you. If you want to jump in, you go.
perfect. Thank you. All right, so let's try this. Try to run this presentation. There we go. Okay. So my piece is to give a fairly brief overview of the history or the background around the expansion of Mariner Center. Not everybody in this group today has been part of it. So almost immediately after Mariner Center opened, the Town of Yarmouth and the Municipality of the District of Yarmouth commissioned a study to examine adding convention space and a performing arts center to Mariner Center. The study concluded that the convention space should be added to Mariner Center, but that a performing arts center was better suited in the downtown of Yarmouth. In 2002, the Anthony Pavilion was added to the complex. And in 2005, Arena 1 was extended to add additional seating, dressing rooms, and multipurpose rooms. In 2010, an addition was made to Arena 2, adding a large multipurpose room and storage space. In 2015, as a result of questions from the owners on what the future expansion might look like at Mariner Center established a steering committee and engaged Jim Morgenstern of DMA Consulting to assist with the needs assessment. The DMA consulting work produced 4 reports under 2 separate contracts. They included the planning context report, a needs assessment, the feasibility study, and a partnership report. For background reading, all of these reports are recommended, and while you may not agree with everything they say, they do cause you to think carefully about the numerous aspects of the project. All of the reports are available on the Town of Yarmouth website, and I've provided a link there to them if you don't have access. So the DMA needs assessment and the planning context reports looked at things such as demographic trends, recreational trends, the existing supply and capacity of recreation facilities, any imminent known changes, and current unmet and future demand. The needs assessment report concluded that what was needed in the community was the replacement of the YMCA with a contemporary aquatic center consisting of a 25-meter 6-lane pool and training, instructional, recreational, and therapeutic components, a gymnasium with additional programmable multipurpose space, and a curling rink to replace the aging curling facility in our region. In the feasibility study, the size of the 3 basic elements of the project were identified. The YMCA, which included the aquatic center and programmable fitness spaces, was 39,760 square feet. The curling club was 18,415 square feet, and additional common areas for Mariner Center totaling 18,180 square feet, for a total size of 76,355 square feet. There we go. DMA Consulting engaged Hanscom, they're a reputable costing agency, to estimate the cost of construction of the project. Hanscom concluded that the all-in cost of the project would be $24,261,500. The estimate did not include an allowance for yearly escalation. Upon completion of the studies, the municipal commitment to moving forward was low. There were concerns about bringing 3 organizations under one roof. There were concerns about the cost overall and the relative cost and benefit of including curling in the project. The new role that the municipal partners would have to, as well as the new role the municipal partners would have to assume in the provision of curling and YMCA facilities in our region. In 2018, further communication with Jim Morgenstern revealed that he felt curling should not be part of the expansion, but he pointed out that in his 2015 needs assessment, he asked the councils to consider whether or not they wished to fund curling in a way that they had previously not done, and to make that fundamental decision before proceeding with the feasibility study. The councils of the day did not consider this recommendation at that time. In early 2019, our member of parliament and our member of the legislature provincially encouraged the application that an application be made for the Mariner Center expansion on the basis that they felt funds would be available. In February, the Town of Yarmouth invited the municipalities to form a steering committee with the goal of advancing Mariner Center expansion under specific conditions. The steering committee was formed. The previous work of DMA was the basis of a reworked building program that now included a field house with surrounding track and excluded both the curling club and the standard gymnasium. EXP consultants were engaged to develop the new building concept and costing for the purpose of the federal and provincial application. In addition to the field house, the project incorporated the completion of the outdoor track and field facility at École Secondaire de Paramba in Tuscan. The building concept included a 36,338 square foot field house, a 27,115 square foot aquatic and recreation center, and an additional 21,765 square feet of common area for Mariner Center. The total size of the addition would be 85,218 square feet. So in addition, 1.5 million was allocated for completion of the track in Tuscan. The Hanscom estimate for this project came in at $37,106,775. So the application proceeded. However, the partners understood that it was highly unlikely that a project of this size would be funded in one phase. The partners agreed if a request was made to phase the project, then the field house would be deferred for a later phase. In recent months, the design has been reworked in several ways to try to reduce the cost. Several iterations have revealed that reductions that produce savings compromise the building program and have implications for both programming opportunities as well as operational costs. In order to achieve a successful expansion that will include an aquatic center and supporting programmable spaces, a budget of 20 million appears insufficient. At this time, we have asked our consultants to allow us to work with the steering committee to redefine the building program as clearly as possible so that we spend no more time adding and subtracting square footage without regard to how we actually want the building to function and important services that the steering committee and the community expect to be delivered through the facility. So that is the background, and I guess brings us to where we are today, which is trying to define that building program in a clear way going forward. So thank you. I'll stop sharing. You're muted, John.
The loves of Zoom meetings sometimes, huh? So Jeff, you're done your part of the presentation, I'm assuming.
That's done. If there are any questions, I would be happy to entertain them, but otherwise, I'm done.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Right, and I'm new to the committee, and I have read the reports, not recently, but read all three. So I have a good feeling for what's in them. So other communities, generally speaking, if you look at, I'm most familiar with Westville, but same thing with Truro. I mean, it's a bigger facility, but most other communities have chosen to do a pool, you know, the 25-meter pool with the, you know, requisite therapy pool and those types of add-ons. And they always have a gymnasium, typically a multi-purpose gymnasium site that they could you know, people could play basketball, badminton, all those types of things that aren't that expensive other than the space that you're provided. And they also a weight room, and for the training of the athletes, whether they're swimmers or runners or whatever may be the case. So and that also, my understanding is a revenue generator. It doesn't actually generate costs. It actually generates memberships and revenue. So just maybe having said that, if you could just maybe speak a little bit to the history of additionally a little bit more to the history of where we were and where we are kind of now in our thinking.
Well, I think, sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the group most recently has obviously put the aquatic center front and center. And we've been talking about kind of the 3 tank model, right? Therapeutic, leisure, and competitive pools. And we have been talking about the programmable fitness spaces and the fitness spaces. You talk about the weight machines or what have you, as being an important element for the development of a membership model. I mean, that's pretty obvious if you look at what, as you mentioned, Trevor, other communities are doing. There's a reason they do it. It builds a sufficient critical mass that people will take a membership for the family maybe and see themselves participating in different ways. You know, I think what we believe and is that aquatic centers alone without that extra space would be a much more challenging operation to sell memberships and to cover your overhead. So that's where our thinking has been. The challenge has been as we've challenged our architects or asked our architects to draw bigger and draw smaller. When it gets too small, you lose the opportunities of these common areas where community interaction happens. You lose some of this programmable fitness space, and you start to scratch your head and wonder how much are we compromising the operational viability by being extra cost conscious at this point in the capital planning. So that's kind of where we are. And because we've been back and forth on it, we felt that rather than continue to frustrate our consultants, that we needed to have this conversation with you all to try and reach some consensus about, as closely as possible, that we can define what it is we want, with the understanding that there's going to be a price tag. None of this is showing up as cheap. So if our community really wants it and we're committed to provide it, it is what it is as far as the cost goes. And the challenge is finding money both within our own means in the community through fundraising and through higher levels of government through application and whatnot.
Thank you. It was very helpful and situates it in my mind a little better. Thank you very much.
John, may I comment?
Yes, absolutely, Gil. Go ahead.
So I think one of the things that might be important to keep in mind as well is that this may be an opportunity and perhaps the only opportunity to correct some built-in deficiencies in the Mariner Center, which we've been doing for 20 years since it was opened. But just referencing, for example, Berwick, that when they built the curling club and the additional curling club onto the facility, when they did that, they actually added 2 dressing rooms as well. And there's a deficiency in the number of dressing rooms at the Mariner Center, which prevents the facility, even though it's a wonderful facility to host national events, it prevents us from applying for national events because of the number of dressing rooms and the way they're allocated. So needing, for example, a minimum of 8 dressing rooms, and we can reasonably provide 5. This may be an opportunity to provide a space which might be multi-purpose in use, but would be able to be used as a hockey dressing room to accommodate that need. So it may be an opportunity. It may be something that needs to be addressed in the plan, because you wouldn't want, I mean, you know, we know that you only have to walk through the front doors to know that there was a huge mistake made in the size of the lobby. And so those are the kind of things that are built-in deficiencies now, and this may be the only chance you ever get to correct those. And I'd highlight the dressing rooms as one of those deficiencies. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions on that part of Jeff's presentation? I don't see any, so I guess we're going to move on to a virtual tour by Duran. You have the floor, Duran.
Thank you, John. And I will see if I can share my screen. I'll just.
I am going to go blank, but I am here, everyone.
All right, I trust you can see my document up.
Yep.
Yeah. Just turn my volume up. So this, so yeah, as part of my self-directed orientation, I've been visiting a handful of facilities around the province just to see how they operate, get to know my colleagues across the province, and then also see, I guess, more evolved facilities that have, beyond the ice pads, have more space, whether it be fitness space, more studio and programmable space, or notably here, the aquatics or the pool facilities. So It was Alain who mentioned, hey, you know, we have this conversation coming up for the benefit of level setting everybody in the room on what an aquatic center looks like in our province. Do you mind walking us through what you've seen? So I'm not an expert yet, but these are my notes. So they're a little, what I've simply done is put down my main thoughts on what makes up an aquatic center, sort of the big blocks. And of the 8 aquatic centers that I've visited, just a simple matrix of what the facility and their main attributes here across the top. So I'm not going to, I know I'm scrolling, I'm just going to take you down to an image here just to start. So just to set us. So this is the newest pool in the province. This is the East Hants Aquatic Center run by Scott Preston. And so I was there last week, actually. So just what you see here, I think Jeff mentioned 3 tanks, and that's actually what you see here. You see the main lane or lap pool. And they have 6 lanes set up for competition. And right now you can see they've got 1 lane open, and they've got a program here with Aquafit running with an instructor. I wonder if I can, do I have a little pointer option here? You see what I'm looking at here, so I don't know if I have to annotate. Yeah, okay, here. I'll see if I can do a little stamp. Does that disappear? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So what you see is the main lap pool here. To the top left, that's the leisure pool. And I've got some bullets to share on what makes up a functional leisure pool. To the accessed from the leisure pool is a feature that many of them have. It's called a lazy river. So this is a jetted space where if you were to go into that space, you'd be moved around by the current. And you know, I've been in it with my little wee ones at time, just holding on to my baby and being moved around with the current. But when I was there on Friday, you see, you know, you see the senior population in there using it for resistance training and therapy, walking against the current. So there's many applications of a leisure pool and what's called the lazy river. Over here is a larger spa or hot tub. And the reason I really wanted to show this image is that as you look across these 3 tanks, to the left of the Aquafit class, you'll see a ramp access into the lap pool. In the middle here, right above that lazy river, you'll see 2 ramps, one accessing the leisure pool, one accessing the hot tub. So best practice now in these modern facilities is every tank, every feature has a ramp access. And I was there on Friday AM. I was there in the first half of the day. And it's when the senior, the more mature population of the community accesses the pool. It was actually quite busy. And you can see those ramps. I don't know if they would be able to access the pool without the ramp. A ladder into the pool would not work. There are what's called elevators or pool pods that will lift you and place you in, but they're mechanical and they tend to break. So one of the features here, just to impress on the group, is just accessibility. That was a big theme. Pretty standard outside of those features. So those 3 features is just fun features and unstructured play. So if you look up in the opposite view of the pool, this is an actual climbing wall. And there is 2 or 3 of the pools that I visited that had this feature attached to their deep end. I hadn't seen that before. And so these are things that can be added on for unstructured play. You can see the blocks there at the end of the pool for competitive swim. There's a diving board and then a water slide. One thing I'll point out about water slides is, you know, going from one facility to the next. I got the repeated recommendation if the future Mariner Center does go with the water slide, make sure it lands on the deck as a recommendation, because as soon as it drops into the pool, you limit your programming in the pool. You've got, you know, people landing in the pool off the water slide. It also increases the attention required from lifeguards and drownings. You do not have to know how to swim to go down this water slide. So that's a big point to make. I've got a few more photos down here that sort of bring the what a modern facility looks like. You've got the family in the way they've structured, and even in the renovation of the Dartmouth Sportsplex, the conversation around dressing rooms and what you prioritize across male, female, and universal or family is a big conversation. And it was mentioned to me more than once on my tours, 10, 20 years from now, there will be no gender change rooms or bathrooms, but today we have them. What you'll see in the Dartmouth Sportsplex was received a renovation that opened, I think they opened their doors in late 2018, 2019. They've prioritized the family or universal dressing room, and they've minimized the male-female dressing. They're still there, they still have all the features, but the majority of the space is dedicated to the family or universal change room. The other really neat aspect of this newer facility at East Hants, they've featured the shower up front and visible from the pool deck. So this is the only shower in the facility, and you may find this odd, you're on display for everybody in the pool. And I'll scroll back. These are the showers, and both the male change room here to the right and the female change room to the left empty into those showers. So everybody over here knows if you've taken a shower before jumping into the pool. And I found that interesting when I asked the manager, who was the former pool manager for the Canada Game Center. He goes, you wouldn't believe the difference taking a shower has on an aquatics budget. You know, there's a lot of hair conditioner. There's a lot of, I guess humans are just filthy. And if they don't have a shower before they jump in, there's more chemicals used, there's more filtration required. And they've done studies on this with swim teams. So I just thought that was an interesting anecdote. The other point I'd make is, as I scroll down here, just on general accessibility, which is a big theme, there's no doors. Doors were going away. The newer the facility or the newer the renovation as I toured these facilities, none of these change rooms have doors. They just have wide access, and where you change is out of sight, is a blind spot where you'd access. This was a super functional wheelchair change room with a lift and literally a track that will carry you into the shower space on your, and I think we all know what these buttons look like, but they like green or red when locked or open. And then what we see with new facilities is not just a button to access an automated door, but a full bar. So if, depending on your mobility, if it's a tap of the chair or your foot, if you can't reach it with your hands. So these are pretty standard too. So I took a few photos of that. And the other feature that we see either inside a pool on a larger pool deck is a splash pad. And this facility, again, checked that box with a splash pad adjacent to their main lobby. And this is a shot from the summer. So we got that one for this conversation. So the intent here was to just provide a visual of what aquatics facilities look like and what are included. I'll take a few more minutes and then this document can be shared. I'm going to update this document as I tour more facilities, but generally, sorry for the scrolling. I didn't build this with the intention for a presentation, but I'll move this out of the way. Generally, when you're looking at an aquatic center, and I historically use the word term pool, you have a leisure pool. That's where your lessons and unstructured play happens. The best leisure pools that I saw had wide steps along the width of that tank, and that supported sort of tiered depth for toddlers and parents so that they can work up and gain confidence as they go into deeper, more hip weight or chest height water, depending on how tall you are. The best one that I saw, and I think this is pretty standard, within this pool, and this is pretty much a theme of anything that you build, whether it be a pool or a community room or a studio or programmable space, how can you split that room up to run multiple programs? So in these pools, when they were, and I saw this in action, a single leisure pool split with lane lines. So you'd have 3 spaces, 3 different structures, 3 different age groups, 3 different lessons happening in the same pool at once, and all the parents on the deck watching. And that was quite something to see. I've already mentioned the other features that can be accessed from a leisure pool, but this is where a lot of the fun happens. And more than one of the managers explained that this side of your pool is the busiest side of your pool. So don't underinvest in the leisure features, which will drive a lot of your traffic. So you'll see splash features and other toys. The lane pool, I didn't see anything less than 6 lanes. They were between 6 and 8 lanes as I toured the facilities, and they're all in this matrix below. The majority were built for competition, meaning they had specific lane length and widths. They had the markers, the flags, the blocks. It was generally the YMCAs that didn't have them. The brand new YMCA downtown Halifax and the Pick 2 YMCA. They generally, they're meant for fitness and not to host events. Very popular hot tubs. I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain that, but one of the takeaways there was build them beyond a certain size so they don't have to be emptied and they can be treated as just another tank, but heated to a different temperature. And then I've listed out here the features that are meant for fun and unstructured play that I saw. I've already mentioned accessibility. I've already mentioned dressing rooms. The other one, as we talk about an aquatic center, is visibility. And I saw both, the good and the bad here. The image below is just a rectangular room effectively, and that comes down to your lifeguarding costs. So if you need more than one lifeguard to see all the bodies of water in your aquatic center, that directly impacts your operating costs. So line of sight, don't underbuild the community room space. So the image here that I shared, they have in there, I do have the floor plan. They have one community room. So this is a standalone pool. It's not part of any other multi-purpose facility. They have one community room, and that was the first thing the general manager said. He goes, they were about to open before COVID. Here's another anecdote. And Mr. Chair, you can move me along if I'm taking too much time, but they were about to open pre-COVID, and they had birthdays booked for every weekend until June or July. But they only had the one community room. He says, I would have had 2, maybe 3 community rooms. Recognize that that's where a lot of your revenue is also going to come from. Birthday parties, day camps, swimming programs, after school programs. And that's a theme that jumped off the page just in general at multipurpose space. Recognize how you're going to use your programmable space, because most people were living with limitations, and that put constraints around revenue. A couple more bullets here on paint and energy costs. Just the brighter you paint the place out, the more you save on lights. Separating chemicals from other storage. And yeah, I think I pretty much hit it. So those are the themes that jumped out at me as I toured the aquatic centers. And I won't bore you with this, but if you're interested, this is how each of the 8 facilities that I toured aligned up against leisure pool, lane pool, spa, accessibility, slide format, splash features, general play, viewing deck, and access to aquatics office space, which was emphasized as important. You need space for your aquatics manager on deck, and you need space for your lifeguards and your instructors to access a space off the deck, off the pool deck. So Mr. Chair, I'll pause there if there's any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Graham. I don't see everybody, so I'm sure there is a question. If someone does, please speak up. Try not to interrupt. I only have 3 of you, myself, Councillor Gildares and Victoria Brooks. So
Did we
if
lose?
anyone has any questions, go ahead.
John, could I ask one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned, Duran, you mentioned competitive events with, many of these pools were capable of hosting competitive events. And I noted in looking at the East Hants facility that you showed us the picture, the deck did not seem terribly wide. And I'm wondering if you had any comments from the pool managers that or facility managers that you spoke to about deck width, because and the reason I'm asking is one of the conversations that we've had over the recent months is the requirements or the advice we've gotten that the larger the event or the provincial event versus a local event, the larger the event, the more deck space that is required. And I'll just stop talking and ask you if you had any insight into that.
I didn't go into specifics on that specific topic, but it did come up. It did come up as a result of the tours. So as you know, the Canada Game Centre has a ridiculous amount of deck space. They can bring in bleachers and set them up around their lane pool. The Truro Rec Centre has also, excuse me, I think here, a large viewing deck above their water features of upwards with 300 capacity. The Lunenburg Lifestyle Center has some space inside, but their foyer is built like a fishbowl on the pool. So they've got that covered. So I did, as a result of just observing, added, my comments on viewing deck here on this column. Cole Harbour Place again had a ridiculous amount of interior viewing space for their pool. East Hants was limited, so you'll see a public lobby and pool deck. Let me just go to the image here, and I hope I'm not flaking out on your answer here, but you can see here. Do you see my mouse as I go around here?
Yep.
Okay. So you access the pool as a user through these doors after you come through the shower. But as an observer or a parent, you can access the pool here, and they put this sort of little curb so that they don't bring their stroller too far into the pool and bring all the crap on the tires into the pool. So, but what you see here, and as a general theme across the whole building, is pretty much at the edge of every wall is seating. So basically the circumference of the pool is seating. And, but as far as that is a very limited viewing area from behind that glass, that's the lobby. And then you generally have seating here. So they're not set up for an audience in this pool. But the pool manager who actually came from the Canada Game Centre, which would be on the other end of the spectrum, perhaps too much deck space, and he'd be able to comment better than I could.
Can I speak to that, John?
Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, just in conversations I've had with members of the parents, I guess, of the competitive swimmers from Yarmouth, one of the things that they talked about was the fact that, of course, viewing space it being tight, especially in some of the facilities. But we talked about unique opportunities. For example, you've got the big screen and the in-house camera crew that can video or can actually provide a live feed to another part of the building. And they were kind of excited about that. They said, you know what, we could sit somewhere and have a beer and watch the big TV and have a burger and not be sitting in a hot, humid poolside and still watch our kids live. So they kind of picked up on that and said, yeah, we don't have to be poolside. Not everybody has to be poolside. Of course, people would be. So there's if you reframe the problem, sometimes you can come up with some unique solutions that don't require a huge amount of space. Anyway, just throw that out there.
Thank you, Gil. I can't see everybody all at once. So if anyone else has any other comments on that portion of the presentation, please speak up now.
What I can say is it sounds like in time there's an appetite for me to maybe package up. So as I make these tours, there's not just the aquatic center, there's the fitness center, there's the gym space, there's the meeting or studio or programmable space. All of these things make up the business plan for these facilities. And I think Jeff and Trevor were mentioning it earlier. Pools are a cost. So a standalone pool is not going to break even. It's a pure cost. So when these things get built, the caution from these operators and the general managers is make sure you have your fitness and programming space adequately thought out and built, because it's that model, that business model that's going to offset the cost of the pool, which everyone needs. So I'll just repeat what Jeff said, because it was echoed in each of these tours in the multi-purpose space, at least over the last couple months.
All right, thank you very much for that, Dram. I guess we'll move on then. I didn't see too many other comments, and thank you very much for that presentation. It was very, yeah, I personally would like to see that Dram packaged up, especially for the new build committee, because it's things that we've got to consider. So yeah, the next one on the agenda is programming choices by CAO Victoria Brooks. So Madam Brooks, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So this is where things get maybe a little organic, I'll say. I'm going to share my screen again. And what the vision was that Jeff and Ella and I had, and it might not translate into reality, but was that based on what you've heard so far, if we could start to, and not look at pictures, but talk about the types of programmable spaces, come to an agreement on kind of how to describe them, and try to put maybe a little bit of definition work around it. Because I think one of the most important things for the work that you're doing is to make sure we're all thinking that the Macintosh apple is the Macintosh apple. I think we're to apples and apples in a lot of cases, but maybe not the same type of apple. So I think, we're going to try to get to as common an understanding as possible. So what I've done here, and this is definitely like, we're going to workshop this, and I'm hoping that John will moderate. But what we're hoping to do is at this stage is, you'll see I've got the column called item. I've got a column called definition, a place for brief description, and a place to record whether or not we've come to consensus on these three columns. And so what the new build subcommittee needs is basically the laundry list of the programmable spaces that you would like us to work with the consulting architects and engineers on, to try and arrive at a new proposal for funding for an expansion to the Mariner Center. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest that we're all agreed that aquatics is kind of first and foremost, but we do need to, I think, define what we mean by aquatics, because the new build subcommittee has seen some pictures of different types of things, and Duran touched on some of those nuances in his presentation. So maybe, and this is great because this gets this on the record and it informs the work of the subcommittee. So maybe what I'll do is start off and suggest, and then I really just, with John's permission, kind of just want the committee to guide the conversation, and we'll kind of work together and work our way through it. So, I'm going to start with the competitive pool. And so a definition would be, we might want to tie it to the FINA standards for competition, which is, the 25-meter piece. So for example, 25-meter finished inside, that kind of thing. So then we might want to describe it over here as a, multi-lane facility
So would the description also include, Victoria, the number of lanes? Four,
Right,
six?
so, yep, so if the group comes to some kind of consensus on how many lanes, then I would include that in the description. The better detail the subcommittee can get here, I think the easier it is for us to work with the consultants.
6 lane.
Minimum of 6 lanes would be my suggestion.
Very good, John.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, and I would agree, minimum 6 lanes, although I think maybe we could add the caveat that we should research that in conjunction with the swim team and others to see just what's required for a provincial event. I mean, I don't know how the heats work, but I mean, bigger is always generally better, but it's also more expensive. So I guess it's a matter of optimizing the number of lanes and the cost and you know, how much better it is an 8 lane than a 6 lane. You know, I mean, I think a minimum of 6 lanes probably. I'm just off the top of my head, but I think maybe staff needs to do a little research around that to find out. You know, would the additional 2 lanes be worthy of the added expense and all the other pieces? So that's really a research piece. I'd be. I think we need to do that research moving forward to get a definitive answer on what's the correct choice for the community.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, through you to Deputy Warden Cunningham. So a little bit of that legwork was done when we did the first proposal. And then we have received from the Yarmouth Whitecaps in their presentation last night, their ask is 6 lanes.
Right on.
Thank you.
If I may,
Go ahead, Danny.
you know, I agree, 6 lanes. I don't know what it would take to build it to the capacity that we can have provincial competitions. I think we have to concentrate more on the regional. That's just my view, that I don't think we have to build it to the capacity of a provincial. I think you're going to find that it's going to be quite a bit more expensive. You definitely need more room, whether it's poolside or in a room where they're going to view, whether it's a lobby, whether it's whatever. When you have provincial competitions, I think you're going to see a lot of people because parents come. There's a lot of people that follow these competitions, and I think we're going to be looking at a much larger facility, and maybe more than what we can afford to build for sure.
Well, that's for sure, Danny. Actually, we did it, as Victoria had alluded to, we had done a little bit of research on that in the regards how many meets that would happen if we did have an 8-lane pool. I don't have the figures in front of me, but it's not like it was like 4 or 5 meets a month. But there's certainly advantages and as you alluded to, disadvantages as well, but that work will be done. Is there anyone else?
John, just on that, I read the report, that feasibility study and that, and I saw that it was my understanding, I wrote it down, that provincially, like Danny was saying, it's only about, I understood, about 4 a year is all that was expected. Anyhow, that's what I read. Stand to be correct. Thank you.
Trevor, I see your hand. I don't see everyone's hand, so sorry about
Yeah,
that.
I know. So I guess for my part, I wouldn't want to rule anything in or out because I mean, there's certainly at this point, there's insufficient information. So I think we need to do the work to figure out, like, I have no idea what a provincial meet or a regional meet looks like and what the difference is in terms of you know, facility requirements. So, I mean, if it costs $5,000 more for, or not 5,000, that's ridiculous. But if it, you know, I think we need to know what the cost is for one type of facility and what the cost is for another type of facility, you know, ballpark.
Mr. Chair, may I ask?
Go ahead.
Was there any previous study that laid out what the economic contribution was of a regional versus provincially held tournament?
So we don't have any economic impact studies for any of this. We can go back and dig in the files from the work we did with EXP on the original proposal, because we did contemplate 8-lane versus 6-lane and the dominoes associated with that in terms of requirement for larger deck spaces. So I think that we have some information that might not be too far out of reach to Deputy Warden Cunningham's point.
Where I was going is just, 3 to 4 tournaments is not insignificant. If I think even of our minor hockey, the number of minor hockey tournaments that are hosted here today, and we've got 2 ice pads. So I'd like to maybe just engage the swimming subject matter experts, whether it be other facilities or the swim team, on what does that mean for, what do we bring in by way of export dollars with a regional versus provincial tournament? How many hotel stays does that mean? Just rough economic outcomes. Because my understanding is they're hoping for a 6-lane that's equipped for regional, and I forget which, if they rode even provincial. So just they might not even be reaching for a provincial status on them.
And it would be good to understand, Durham, what their competition dynamic is, because with respect to hockey, any hockey team can stand up a tournament and people will come and play. But if we're talking about provincial level tournaments, is there a limited number of opportunities there every year, and how much competition is there for those opportunities? So it'd be good to know that. And I think anecdotally I've heard some of that, but I don't have it kind of all pulled together.
Well, I can raise my hand and draw that up between now and the next meeting if that helps. But if there's someone who's better equipped to do that, by all means.
I did see Alain's hand go up, but everyone please be reminded that since it's a shared screen, I can only get 6 people at a time. So go ahead, Alain. I'm sorry if I missed anyone else.
Jerem, I'm quite confident that Swim Nova Scotia would have some economic impact information as well. YCAPS could quickly tell you which tournaments would qualify for 6-lane. Victoria, CEO Brooks is correct. I don't believe they asked for 8, and really and truly, there are very, very few facilities across Nova Scotia that can host that level tournament. I think one of them is in Acadia. I can't, if I recall correctly. So, the larger tournaments may be out of reach, but I don't want to speak for YCAPS, nor do I want to speak for Swim Nova Scotia. Would have those that data.
May I, when my turn comes, John, whenever.
Like I said, I can only see hands go up on the screens that I see. So I did see Jeff's hand go up, and then Danny, you can speak afterwards.
That's good.
So I have a comment which has a question nested within it. So I had a conversation with Durham and after his tour, and he made the comment, and I want him to confirm this, that you can kind of tell by visiting these facilities the order in which they were built, that one facility tends to learn from the previous facility's mistakes, and they get better and better and better as they go. East Hants just finished their facility. They are the newest in the province. And, I don't know about you, but I looked at that facility and I was pointing at the screen in my mind, at least, saying, that's it. That's what this community wants. So would it be reasonable, I'm talking from the pool, the change rooms, I know they made some mistakes, around the number of community rooms and so on. Would it be an appropriate jumping off point to say, let's learn from everyone else's mistakes. Let's grab that design, that floor plan, and see if it fits us and tweak it rather than starting from scratch. So Durham, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and time is limited. If people wanted me to pull up my my photo albums here, I have grouped them by facility, and I'm happy to do a slideshow. But you go from Cole Harbor, which is from 1989, and an incredible investment that went into that aquatic center. Then you go to the Dartmouth Sportsplex and what they have, to the Canada Games facility, and the Liverpool Bridgewater, the Bridgewater LCLC, and they can tell you stories about their design challenges. But you see accessibility being corrected, you see line of sight, and you see functional features, like I said, about access to the water and how they built it for the community that it serves. And then you see genuine intent. The Canada Game Centre was built to host the Canada Games, and they even had a synchro event there. So that 8-lane pool was built for intent to put stands on the deck. It's clear if you look at the width of the deck for the East Hants, they maybe didn't have the objective of competition or hosting. Even though you see some of the features, the 6 lanes and the starting blocks, they might not have had as a priority hosting larger events, because they've got the Truro pool down the road, and they've got Halifax 30 minutes away with unlimited pool options. So perhaps they were there as a community pool first and foremost over competition, whereas we are lucky to have a history here with a competitive swim team that we'd like to serve with this. Did that answer your question a bit, Jeff, or did you want me to hit on something more specific?
No, I think I was recalling your comment about you could see the evolution of design.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be jumping in as the next one, does it make sense to grab the blueprints from East Hants and tweak them, as you say, maybe more community rooms and programmable space, maybe wider decks, because our reality may be different than East Hants in terms of our ambition to host. And lay them out in front of the swim team, lay them out in front of this group, and mark them up to identify the changes or the elements that we think are appropriate for our community. Does that make any sense?
It really does, Jeff, and I hope I'm not sucking up too much of the air. Me as an individual, as a father with 3 kids, 13 years and younger, it was almost emotional walking through that facility and seeing the assets there and what our kids are growing up without. There's nothing about that space that felt too large. It checked all the boxes that, as far as I can hear from the community dialogue and the wants and needs that are bubbling up online and on media. And then we're lucky because the future placement of that facility is attached to the Mariner Center. So we come with some space, and by adding an aquatic center and some fitness space, we're going to create more demand for it all. And so I think I can see us having a very successful outcome here if we just stay close to what we know here and what we can learn through others.
All right, Danny?
Yes, let's not lose sight of of where we're at and the population. I mean, we can't compare ourselves to some of these areas for sure because of population, and we're saying maybe 3 or 4 provincial meets, provincial tournaments, whatever, per year, but it doesn't mean that those 4. I don't know how many of those tournaments are held in the province on a yearly basis. I think they're saying 3 or 4. It doesn't mean that they're all going to happen here in Yarmouth just because we have a new facility, and we know that a facility of this magnitude cannot. We can't do that by just without the 2 other levels of government to step in. There's just no way that we can even come close to doing this without them. And we've basically been told, and we don't want to go back to where we were, where this is what we want, this is what we think we want, but the cost comes too high that the government says, no, that's way out of their range to support that. And we've gone through that. We know we've had a couple of designs, and we've heard what the cost can be for for adding extra lanes. I mean, we've only got so much money to work with, and I think we've got to look at our needs and not so much our wants. That's just my view.
Yeah, but before I turn the floor over, Victoria, what I hear you saying is more community focused than competition. And the community is the one that's ultimately footing the bill. And that's where my personal opinion, I think we should be going. Victoria, you had your hand up.
Did, yep. So I'm just, trying to fill the role as a facilitator here a little bit. So if what I'm hearing everybody say is correct, East Hants is a 6-lane, not an 8-lane, correct, Duran? Yep, is a 6-lane. And I think East Hants came in, somewhere between 15 and 19 million, is that correct?
That standalone facility is $19 million.
19 million, that's what I thought. So, if we're contemplating adding some community spaces and a multi-programmable fitness space, can I ask you, Mr. Chair, maybe to poll the committee here for more or less their blessing for the new build subcommittee to take East Hants per Jeff's suggestion and start there and start tweaking from there. Maybe could I get you to, we got to the purpose of this workshop is to give that subcommittee a little bit of direction. So with respect, maybe I could ask you, Mr. Chair, if you could just poll the committee and get a sense of who's in for starting with East Hants with the subcommittee and going from there.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the room since I can't see everybody. I'm going to go with Mayor Pam Mood. What's your opinion on that?
First of all, I'll ask Duran this question: Is the East Hants just an aquatics facility?
Correct. It's a pool. Yeah. What you
So
saw.
That to me is zero capacity to bring in money to pay for the pool.
Correct.
So I don't know if I would go that way. I could be talked out of it with good solid reasoning, but I would never just, unless we're just talking about what would the pool look like, but we can't just, $20 million for a pool is just the basics, and we need that programming to bring in the money to pay for it.
Yeah, I hear you, Pam. I think I should have qualified what I said. So just looking at aquatics, not the other pieces of the membership pie, just looking at the aquatics piece, is East Hants a reasonable starting spot, knowing that we've got to look at community spaces and multi-programmable fitness spaces as well?
Okay, I could do that as long as we all understand that $20 million is the very basic starting spot for this.
Okay, we'll say in the same lines, Deputy Mayor Steve Berry. You there?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, if we move forward in that that way, I like the East Hants. Also, thank you, Duran, for a very informative presentation. I like the ability to compare other things, so best practices. So make sure that we use that. So I'm good there.
All right, Gildares.
Yeah, I think it's a great starting place. I would comment that I think probably a standalone facility would have a little bit higher price tag than an add-on. So, I don't think we should just worry about the 20 million at this point.
That's a good point.
Okay, we'll go over Warden Danny Muse.
Yeah, I mean, I have no objections to taking that plan and looking at it and whatever, but let's not go where we have to start from square one again. I mean, we've worked a lot on this. We've had the firms work towards this project, and I don't know how much more work we can get from the money I don't know what the contract was or how we what kind of an agreement that we have with them, and if we, I mean, how much more they're going to do for the money that we've already, and it probably means that we're going to have to start spending more money on the design again from what we have. So it's just something to look at, I guess. But I have no problem with looking at that plan. It looked great, and if we can fit some of those facilities into what we've been kind of looking at up to now, then yes, by all means.
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair, a little bit to help Warden Muse.
I guess so. Make it quick.
Yep. So the engagement that we have with EXP is probably 66% spent, and that's why the CAOs wanted to do this workshop, because we felt like we weren't using the time that EXP had committed to giving us as wisely as we could be. So we wanted to get more focused. And I would say that it would make their life a lot easier if we could be this specific with them, because we haven't quite been this specific yet. So I hope that's helpful, Warden.
All right, Deputy Warden Nicole Albright.
Thank you. I completely agree with taking this plan and tweaking it. And I really appreciate being able to see the visual, because I need that. I need to visually see what it looks like, because if you just give me figures, that's not my strength. So I don't think we should reinvent the wheel. This is the most modern facility. This is kind of, as Duran said, they're learning as they go. This is the best plan that they've come up with so far. So let's take that and let's move forward with it and see how we can tweak it to fit our needs.
All right, Councillor Guiseret.
Yes. Hold on a second. Yes, I agree with that starting point with this facility. Makes a lot of sense. I tell you what I'd like to point out also is the thing on the cost. I'm pretty well always watching every penny, but you know what? We've also had the people out there looking for a facility with fitness and all that in there. We can't lose sight of that. And I think if the will is there, and that's what the people want, we as councillors should be able to come there and look and go a little more, to what's needed. Not just say we're cutting off at 20 million, whatever. I really believe if we do that, I've seen that from the Mariner Center when it was built, that so many things that were not done, if they had been done at the time, would have been way cheaper. So we better watch that. That's it. Thank you.
All right, I'll move over to the Municipality District of Yarmouth councillors. I'll move over to the Deputy Warden, Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. That's a good starting point. What I will add in is little piece that I do understand, or I think I understand, from the Pictou County Wellness Center, which is a bigger facility, which is probably, it's a bigger area. So we wouldn't want to go that big, obviously, but I do think that they copied their design from the Summerside PEI Canada Games Center, and they saved some dollars in engineering costs because of that. So likewise, if we were to start off with this Elmsdale facility, I did view the Elmsdale facility. I stopped there on the way through one day, some months ago. We may be able to, if that's a starting point, we may be able to use some of the existing engineering that's been done there. We may be able to buy it or purchase it and integrate it into our plan. So I think, listen, I think that's Elmsdale's kind of, it's not it's a growing area, but I think size-wise, it's probably pretty comparable to our 25,000 folk catchment area. So it seems reasonable that we have something like that. And from what I see is they can host competitive events there. It's not going to be Dalhousie, or it's not going to be Katie, and that's not what we're looking to fund. But I agree with Guy and Danny. I mean, I think this is both. It's going to give the community what we need, but it's not going to be unreasonably sized beyond what we can reasonably do. So that seems like a really good starting point. It's current, and we can maybe adjust it a little bit to our needs. If you've got something that it's already in existence, I think that's a really smart place to start. So yes, thank you.
Well, that was along the way. Say yes. That's all right, Trevor. Councillor Malley. Councillor Daniel Allen, you here? I know you're here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm here. No, and I'm in agreement with 100%. I think that's a great footprint to start with. When you see the pictures, I'm like Nicole, it's a visual thing. When you see the pictures, you know, you'd just like to take it and put it next to our building and away we go. But yeah, there are things we definitely could tweak and make it our own. But I think it's a great place to start.
I also agree as well, but I must say that the last engineering rendering that I seen, the second version was not all that far off from what we seen there. If you visualize the pictures, I believe CEOs, myself, and Danny Muse and the Mayor Mood seen that. Well, I don't think we're that far off from what Duran had shown, to tell you the truth. But we do need tweaking. Now, Victoria, do you need any more? I do know there's, you have here, aquatics, East Hants version 1.2, fitness, common spaces. Is there anything else that anyone can think of as an item that we should be focusing on in the new build?
Question, Mr. Chair, if I can pose it.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and this is with out of respect for the elected officials who've been working on the new build, and I'm just going to put this on the table and leave it there for the committee members to talk about. One of the areas that we have struggled the most with the architects and the engineers is, what about this concept of a walking track? So I'll provide hopefully some background, and I'll rely on Jeff and Alain to help fill in any gaps I might leave. The walking track, the indoor walking track, became part of a consideration in the structure that we're looking to build at the Mariner Center site when we were contemplating a field house. And when we met with government and looked at rights, I'll put air quotes, right sizing the project from a finance perspective, we were encouraged, if possible, to continue to look at indoor walking opportunities. And I would say for the new build subcommittee, that's been the most problematic piece to look at trying to fit in. So I'm just going to leave that on the table for the committee to talk about and hopefully receive some feedback on.
All right, is anyone first? I'm going through.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that.
I seen Gil, and then I seen Pam, and we'll go from there, and then Duran.
Okay, just from past experience and when the original steering committee met, that was a very, very high demand item. And that was supported by like the Department of Health and community health boards. There was a lot of interest in the indoor walking track, especially as it accommodates seniors or people with mobility issues or vision impaired that can't actually walk outside as comfortably as people might think. So the walking track was a huge component for a certain demographic in the community. And I think we just have to start thinking outside the box as far as that goes. You know, there has to be a way. I seem to recall seeing pictures of a walking track that actually exited the second floor of a building and was built exterior to the building. They just extended the rafters or the floor joists, I guess, or the beams out beyond the wall and built an exterior walking track, which was kind of cool actually. But I think that component really needs to be considered. And I think the public would be very disappointed if a walking track, especially the seniors, but there's a huge demographic out there that would like to use a walking track.
Pam?
Yeah, I'll second what Gil said. I get more, I think publicly we're hearing pool, of course, which we all know, but that walking track is mentioned to me more than anything else. My question was, when it comes to this section of the presentation, the programming choices, we're going to get somebody to do this work for us, right? We're no experts in programming. So I guess I just want that reaffirmed. I think we know what we want, but.
Yep, that's my understanding, Pam.
Thank you, Victoria.
Duran, you were next.
Well, I'll just fill this group in. We do not have a walking track today, but we creatively used the concourse here. We started three weeks ago a walking program, and just to affirm the interest, we'll have 10 to 15 people in our 2-hour window take us up on that walking program. It's a Toonie drop in, and we turn the lights on and put the music on and create a safe place with some rest stops with chairs. If you know the Arena 1, there's an L-shaped like dogleg concourse. It allows for 6 feet distance. You can walk and pass each other if you wish. And then we're very fortunate. One of the design features that really works is our stairwells. They're huge. We've got ginormous stairwells, and with a railing right down the middle. We've given them a fresh coat of paint and lit them up well. And if people want a little bit more rigor, they can, to their walk, they can add the stairwell, which is 2 stories. And so that's there. We proved that concept. We're now going to just find more times that work, because there's a lot of comments on our social media for evenings after folks are off work. I can offer a similar summary at our next meeting on walking tracks. I started that and have some visuals and have a table started on the walking track setups in the 9 facilities that I've visited. So if there's value in seeing what other, again, Nova Scotia, we don't have to limit it to what we have in our province, but if there's value in this group as they make decisions and seeing what others have, and informing where this sits in priority, I can put a separate document together just on the walking track scenario.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak to that?
John?
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
My question to whether it be the CAOs, that when we got a price on what we were trying to build, which was around 40 million, was there a price separated just for the walking track? I'm sure you'd need elevators to go up there, like to help the handicapped or people with mobility issues. Was that broken down? Does anybody know? Or could we find out, Victoria? Could we find out?
It could. It wouldn't be a great comparator, Guy, because the walking track was being built to go around the indoor field. So it was a completely different application of that space. But we can find it out. I'm sure we can find it out, but it might not be transferable to this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Trevor?
Yeah, the walking track, I echo certainly what Gil had said. You hear a lot about that in the community. Everybody think that's a good idea. I know we do have a limited budget. Having said that, I mean, oftentimes, and I may, Duram may want to chime in, but oftentimes those walking tracks, if they can't be engineered in an existing facility, are sort of circle a gymnasium, right? Like, you know, upstairs, you know, on a 15 or 20 feet up. So I don't know, that's a big add if we're to add that in too, but I don't know. I guess my question is how could we possibly provide a walking track within you know, I'll say a $25 million scope or a $30 million scope, which is significantly less than what we had before, but it seems as though we'd be well over, you know, with a pool and so forth, well over $20 million. And if we were to add a walking track, that would be, although good, would be a big addition dollar-wise. So anyway, I'll put that out there. I'm not just certain where we go with that.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know if there was a question, but I'll just comment back to you, Trevor. Basically, the walking tracks that I've seen were built to purpose. They used the bowl seating that was part of the design of their main arena, and they used that envelope. And then there you can see various flooring, cushion flooring, so that people can both walk and or jog or run. And like everyone's been mentioning here, some of them have, you know, between design and final build, you see the nips and tucks that happen in that last mile as people fit it into budget, and you see very functional walking tracks and you see dysfunctional walking tracks. I also did see, Trevor, an example of what you just described, a walking track raised above a gymnasium. And the new YMCA that just got built in downtown Halifax, the Halifax and Greater Halifax and Dartmouth YMCA just opened this year. They have a very nice gymnasium and they have a walking track suspended over it. So to answer your question, I've seen that once.
Thank you.
I do have one thing to say about a walking track, and we all know that we're working under X budget, but there was also talked about a phase 1 and phase 2. So would it, and from my understanding from our last new build subcommittee meetings, that the walking track is the sticking point. We floated the idea of putting it over the smaller arena. There was concerns about if we're going to hinder the use of the arena, but we very well may have to, just due to financial constraints, because we all know that the pool portion or in the aquatics in the public space portion is going to be pretty darn close to what we can afford and what the feds and province are willing to bring forward. So maybe we can use what we have existing. As Duram said, they've used somewhat. I know there's hindrances and stuff, but maybe there's a little bit of a workaround for that as well. I don't know, but it's something to think about. Or is it something that we can do in an already an existing space that we have? So we'll have to see. Is there any more on that, Victoria?
I'm gonna try to rephrase what I think the direction is, and I think it's most important for the members of the new build subcommittee, who are John, Gil, Danny, Pam, and Nicole, to feel like they've got their assignment. So what I think I heard was there is a demonstrated demand in the community for a walking track, and a purpose-built facility, not walking programmed in existing square footage, and we should design for that and have that included in the budget. That's what I think I heard.
If I may, John.
Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I think we were talking about putting a walking track over the existing ice number 2 or whatever it's called. I think if we're going to have a walking track, we have to be able to fit it in in what we're building. I don't think we can look at expanding so that we can have a walking track. That's just my view. If we can do it, but as you know, with those that have already been on, meeting with the firm, with EXP, I think there's concern on their view of where it can fit to accommodate that. If I remember correctly, there was only so many feet that they could come out from the wall to not overhang the rink too much, and the ones that they recommended was too narrow. There were, you wouldn't be able to walk side by side, and that's something that we have to look at to make sure that we can accommodate it in what we're already going to be building. And that's just my view on that.
Can you put a tent on the side, Danny? Some kind of a big tent that for the, it kind of sounds crazy, but something just outside so it's covered. Be a lot cheaper, but I'm just throwing that out.
I think that's where the field house came into play, and if we're going to do that, I'm not sure that would be feasible. And I'm just saying, maybe it would be. I don't know.
Thanks, Danny.
But there was concern there when we talked about the purpose-built walking track up on the second level of the new build around the pool area. It was just too small, and I can't remember who actually said it, but they were absolutely right. So there comes to a point of cost and effect. So
yeah, I agree.
That part there is, in my opinion, is going to be the biggest hurdle
Yeah,
of any.
I think it is too. I can see that giving us a problem in order to fit that, but you're right. When we first looked at the one in above the aquatic center, it wasn't worth building for that size. It wasn't even big enough to call it a walking track, you know. Anyway, you're right, John.
Is there anyone else want to speak any more to that? I'm trying to scroll back and forth. I got three. I see Deputy Mayor Steve Barry. I seen your hand go up.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting at the high school right now, and one of the problems when we built this gym was when we're in the old school on Parade Street, which got some great information, by the way, for support yesterday, for those who don't know, but it was, we can't wait till we go to the new school. We can't wait till they go to the new school. So for instance, when we had volleyball tournaments, people would come from away. We take chairs, we'd set them up around the outside of the gym. Great. When we get to the new school, we can't wait. We come to the new school. We have 2 courts that can be used here side by side. The problem is when you haul the bleachers out, they go about 8 inches into each court. So guess what we need to do at this high school? Put chairs around the outside again. So many times when we build things, they're going to look like this. They're going to be so great. And then they get here, and excuse the term, but we half-ass it. I understand that budgetary restraints are a big thing, but I think we do owe it to the people of Yarmouth to do it right. If you do it right the first time, I'm sure Gil can attest, you know, when we get out there and we add things on to the Mariner Center, it costs more to do it later. I also think personally, so we talk about swimming, we talk about, you know, elite swim clubs, and they're important because those are lifeguards or whatnot, but maybe some people can't afford to get into swimming and do all those other things. Maybe they can just walk. We want them to come too, though. That is revenue that is easily done, right? The health benefits that come for our area, our aging population. I just think that's something that's the people that I talk to really, really want a walking track. And I know it's hard. We can't have everything we want, but I think sometimes we need to consider, are we going to build this building and have it be like the gym that we sit here on, right? Putting chairs around the outside, and really at the end of the day, now we're talking about, well, when we get a new school, the best part about this school is it wasn't built that good, so it won't last that long, and hopefully we'll have a better one when it comes. But just saying, something to consider, I guess. So just from my point of view.
Thank you for that, Steve. Pam?
Yeah, what he said, what he said, it's just, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think we get caught up, and I understand this. I respect that, you know, there's a healthy fear around the big numbers, but the numbers are only big when you look at the big picture. But when you bore down to what we will actually have to pay, the numbers aren't so daunting. And, you know, Guy said it earlier, the community is screaming for this. And I would suggest they're screaming for us to do it the right way. I mean, I'm not a fan of spending money on half-assing anything because you're just throwing good money after bad, and it's going to cost you twice as much in the long run to get what you should have done in the first place. But anyway, that's where I stand. We can't be afraid of these numbers. Put our taxes up. I hate to say that, but I think there's an expectation that we have to do that. You want services, you got to pay.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't want to extend the conversation unnecessarily, but what's being said here applies to the ongoing operation of a future facility. So Gil can speak to it with greater detail, but I've learned from this facility and my other tours that you do need to think about how your space is going to be used in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If it does take us 5 years to cut the ribbon on this, knowing those needs long-term impact your operating and your model and what you can actually generate revenue with. We have some restricted space here, and as you tour other facilities, some have gotten it really right and some have gotten it really bad, and they've got constraints on their budget because they can only do so much in the space they have to offset the cost of keeping the lights on and keeping the ice cold. So those things are real.
John, can I speak again?
Go ahead, Gil. Then I seen Trevor.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, you have to keep your eye on the prize here. You know what, when we talked about using the Enfield pool as an example, that very same thing happened with the Mariner Center. We were probably one of the first out of the gate as far as a multi-purpose facility. And I acted as an unpaid consultant on several of the projects that have taken place since then, including Port Hawkesbury. And then, while the Liverpool one comes to the Queen's Mariner Center in Liverpool, I recall a conversation I had with the developers of that project. And I said, whatever you think your lobby should be, triple it. And they thought I was crazy at the time. But the fact that they've got natural light coming into their main arena from windows, which was, something that architects spoke against. So the fact that they do have a lobby that is capable of being a gathering space for people in the community. If you've come to the Mariner Center on a hockey game night when there's activities in Arena 2 and there's a Junior A game in Arena 1 and it's inclement weather, and look at upwards of 1,200 people trying to jam into the facility at the same time, you know that you've done it wrong. We've only got one chance to do this right. And I can tell you that when you look at the statistics around Yarmouth, we've got the highest level of obesity in the province. We've got the highest level of chronic illness in the province. We've got the highest level of more than one chronic illness per person in the province. And those things can be addressed. A lot of those things can be addressed through exercise. And right now, one of the things that was, I think, key to this project is the walking track. And I think we just have to be extremely creative and open-minded, because I think that there's a way to fit it in there. I know that, one of the greatest urban designers in the world said that the problem with a lot of academics is they think what they were taught. And sometimes you got to think outside that box. Really, you really have to do that. And I think we really should consider very strongly making the walking track a key component of this new build. Anyway, thank you.
Trevor?
No, I think I'll just pass on my comments. I think Gil said most of what I was going to say. I'll just add that the Canada Games Center, which is a much bigger center, obviously, than we're looking at in Bedford, it has a like gymnasium in the middle, that type of thing, with a very large running track around the top. I mean, the scale's obviously much different. But I mean, that seems to be what they built downtown. I haven't seen that one, but there's a very similar type thing out at the Canada Games Center. So I don't know how creative we can get with putting the running track in the current facility, because obviously it was never ever intended to have a running track around the inside. Width and all that type of thing would, severely limit what you could do with it. And then at the end of the day, to everybody's point, it's probably would be a disappointment for the community and really not that useful. But it may be that we need to look at not doing this all at once too. I don't know. That's something for the committee to go back and talk a little bit more about. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry if I missed anyone once again. Any more? Victoria, do you have anything else you want to any more direction?
Well, so what we had thought would happen once we kind of got some material in these boxes was give Alain a chance to shine in one of his best gifted areas, and that's around talking about the money, and some of the committee members alluded to that. And so, I think to Pam's point, sticker shock is a thing, but we got to break it down, and we got to understand, what programming spaces are we thinking are going to land where. And I'm not sure what approach Alain's going to take. And Alain, are you ready? Because Alain's been doing some calculating as you've been talking, and doing some what my father-in-law calls figurations, and working the numbers. So I think I'll stop sharing my screen, but I can share it again if we need to come back to it, and pass the baton to Alain.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can do some figurations here. Do you see my screen?
Alls I see is immersive online experiences are on Zoom.
That's interesting. Let's try this again.
When Victoria turned off her screen, it went to this screen.
I see your screen.
I see it, Alain.
I see.
Yeah, I
Okay.
see Alain too.
I do too.
Okay.
I don't see any of it.
Oh boy. Feels like romper room suddenly. I see Victoria, I see Guy. Okay, well, Mr. Chair, I can wait a
Yes,
bit.
go ahead, Alain. I may have to step out and re-attend because
All right.
I don't have any of what's going on here.
I will have some describers. There's a lot of numbers on this, so I'll probably do mostly qualitative anyway. So at the end of the day, what we know is, well, let me start again. The purpose of this document is just a simple document, actually. It's just to provide a high-level estimate of the probable municipal contributions, but this would be for capital investments only. This does not include any operational costs or deficit funding or contributions that we may make towards this project, which we know we will have. We will have an additional operating costs. Obviously, there's a lot more square footage, a lot more activity, and we all know an aquatic center is an expensive operation. So this is a draft, and I would say there are 3 assumptions that I've made, which is important to understand because based on your assumptions, the numbers can change. So the assumption is that we will require some form of borrowing to pay for our proportion of funding for a project of this magnitude, and that the repayment period would be a 20-year loan at an interest rate of 4% and 1 annual payment. Now, in reality, we probably would have 2 annual payments, which would likely reduce the interest costs, but not drastically enough to change the idea of this document. The funds don't anticipate community fundraising efforts that could reduce our municipal portion. It's too early to know how that fundraising effort would work and what it would be applied against. So we assumed at this point that it would be 0. Clearly, we do expect a fundraising effort, so that assumption is just what it is right now for simplicity. Number 3, any project would attract 67% provincial and federal funding. Now, that percentage could differ depending on all sorts of different policy changes. We've seen funding at 75%. We've also seen funding at less than that percentage. But the other assumption that I've made is that at some point, the federal and provincial government is likely going to say, well, we're in, and this is as far as we go. Okay, so the number that I've taken is 18 million. So what 18 million represents, I just have to remind myself what it represents. It represents between 25 and 20, well, a little over $26 million projects, 2/3. Let me just see if I did that right. Yeah, so it's a little over a $26 million project that they would be willing to participate up to 67% on. We presume, I believe fairly accurately, that we may want a project that's larger than what the federal and provincial government are willing to fund. And so this is what that's trying to reflect, is that as the project gets bigger, their percentage of contribution may lower as a total of the project. That could be an incorrect assumption. I hope it is. I hope they're at 70% of our project, but we don't really, we're trying to take a more conservative view, small c. So the amount remaining to fund is listed here under the scenarios. So what you'll see is the estimates are total all-in costs. Based on the conversation, we know that 20 million is a very, I think it's a low assumption. Even if you were to take the $19 million East Hants project, those numbers are probably 2 years old at this time. And construction of that nature in our region would certainly be larger. So,
Alain, sorry, could you just scroll down on your page?
Thank you.
We're only seeing a portion of your page. Sorry.
That's right.
Excuse me.
oh, that's okay. I hadn't, yeah, I was purposely blocking so I wouldn't lose you, that you would just listen and not like go to the numbers, because But that's all, I'm good. It's all good. So what we know is that 20 million is really a low number. And in fact, probably not a realistic number at all. So as we move down the columns, 22.5, 25, 27, and 30, I believe that based on the discussion that we've had and based on the EXP discussions that we've had, it's the most likely reality numbers are on the right-hand side. Okay. So let's just focus a little bit on, let's say, the last three columns. Let's ignore for a moment these cheap versions or less expensive versions of the project.
Alain, have you scrolled down yet, or is my screen locked?
I have scrolled down. Is anybody else seeing?
All I see is the scenarios, project magnitude, and all I see is total all-in cost, and that's it.
Same here.
That's where I'm.
Same here, yeah.
Okay, how about now?
Nope.
Nope.
For some reason it's frozen.
Yeah, I think it might be frozen. Let me just stop the share and restart sharing. Let's just share. Share.
Well, I get the Durham to unfreeze the ice.
I think this is purpose.
Oh,
You're just being purposely suspenseful.
Yeah. So how about now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you for not letting me go the whole way and like and make me talk about numbers and not show you the numbers. So
I just blamed it on my own computer before I started blaming anyone else.
all right, that's good. Thank you for that. All right, that's good. So what I was saying is that the last three columns over here, 25, 27, and 30, are the most likely cost estimates for this project. Big numbers. Keep in mind, these assume no federal provincial funding, no project. I mean, we need the partnership of our federal provincial counterparts. Otherwise, we don't have a project. So the assumption in those three last scenarios is that there would be a net amount of between 8.2 and 12 million that municipalities would be responsible for. And so that would be over a 20-year period at an interest rate of 4%, which gives you an annual debt repayment, as you see in those three columns. So between, let's say, $610,000 to $885,000 a year. Keep in mind, that's the three of us combined. That's not us individually, it's the three of us combined. It also makes another assumption down below that we only have 3 municipal partners, right? So right now we have a room full of municipality of Toy, Mora, and Modi. What we don't have is Acadia First Nation or other organizations that may be intimately interested with participating in this project for their own community needs. And in particular, AFN. I certainly can't speak for them, but I guess what we should keep in mind is that these numbers are shared by 3. And if there was 4 or 5, obviously this would look different. But the annual debt repayment is unlikely to look considerably different unless the 4th partner sought to have additional contribution or additional services to increase the top line. So down below, I have identified 2 funding scenarios, and I'd like to focus on the second scenario more than the first, because it represents how we filed our initial application. So what we said under our initial application is that we would share costs based on an average of equal uniform assessment and population. This is not an official breakdown of funding percentages, but it represented the last place that we had a discussion about it. So what you will see in each of your respective municipalities, this would be your portion of the annual cost. So for instance, if it was a $25 million project, the town of Yarmouth's portion of that capital cost would be $175,000, essentially. That's annually for 20 years. So each of you have an idea, or certainly if you don't, you will have an idea of what 1 cent of your residential or commercial rate generates in terms of income. So I would encourage the CAOs and councillors coming out of this meeting that you can take this information and say, okay, well, what does that actually represent in terms of cents on the rate? then what you're doing is you're taking a big number and you're boiling it down to what does it actually mean to our residents. So for instance, and I'm just going to use the town of Yarmouth as an example, going all the way through. What we're saying right now is 30 million is probably more likely than anything. And so that means for the town of Yarmouth, 254,000 would be the annual contribution that they would make. And of course, the other two are listed there as well. So for instance, Moda, Argyle, we make about 48,000 for every 1 cent. So if we were at the high number of 286,357, if I divided that by 48,000, that represents about 6 cents on the rate. So that is capital only. So those are the kinds of numbers that I think that you'd want to keep in mind when you're planning this project. And as the elements of the project get analyzed or eliminated or added, so will these numbers change. So this process is a fairly simplistic calculation that will be adjusted based on how you proceed as a group on this project.
Okay, before you go any further, I have to ask this: is any gas tax money available for a project of this type?
The quick answer is yes. I think that we have traditionally used gas tax money to fund recreation improvements at the Mariner Center. So this would certainly would fit the bill, whether you own it or not. So that's important for the Municipality of Argyle to understand that gas tax eligibility could apply here, even if you did not own the facility, which in the current state, there are only 2 owners of the Mariner Center as is. So the quick answer is yes. So the cost here assumes a 4% interest. Obviously, if you're not borrowing, if you're using your own reserves, the cost will be lower for you. But that could be different based on the municipal unit and how they pay.
Ellen, excuse me a second. Just on the gas tax question, you're not allowed to stack gas tax with other federal funding, are you?
I think that it depends on the project. It could present an issue if you stack. There could be elements of the project where you might fall outside of the funding that you would be able to use your gas tax for the difference, right? So to your point, it is possible based on the rules of the day that only a portion of your gas tax can be applied to this project. But to answer the warden's question and the chair's question, it is an eligible expense conditional on the rules of other funding and what they require.
For example, if I could just jump in, if a certain segment of the project was being applied for under the infrastructure funding envelope, i.e. aquatics and community multi-use spaces, and another portion of the project, i.e. walking track, active transportation, was under a separate budget funded separately, then there might be room for a conversation there.
I would agree. And again, the assumption I had was at some point, the federal and provincial governments might tap out on funding. Well, if they're not funding the full project, then whatever they're not funding is fair game. So you can always do a blended model of funding, obviously with the conditions that are in play. They can't apply the conditions on things they don't pay for. Are there any other questions or comments? Again, this is order of magnitude. This is really high level.
Guy, go ahead. I do see Guy. That's the only thing I see so far.
Probably a comment. You were talking, Alan, about raising the for each unit or the Municipality of Argyle 6 cents on the tax rate. Also, I was thinking we could always think of ways of reducing some of our expenses. So let's say we sunk the airport, just sink it, and take that money and pay for that. That would stop us from, and I'm talking just the Municipality of Argyle, that would save on what we charge to the residents. That could be a possibility. Am I right or wrong?
Well, that's a very specific example, but I think what you're saying is, you know, the 6 cents tax increase is not necessarily what will happen, and if that's what you're saying, the answer is yes. I agree with that. If you had to pay 100% of this difference, and the only money or options that you had was the tax rate, that's what that 6 cents represents. In reality, if you're using gas tax, or if you're, again, to your point, reducing other services or expenses in other areas, you may not need to go to 6 cents. But I will say this: if you certainly, you know, you will certainly have to consider the operational side of things as well. And so, you know, so there would be 2 components that we would have to consider in this project.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Anybody else?
Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, two points. Projects like this over very long time horizons, 20 years. Again, the figures are out there, but those are in today's real dollars. If you discount a little bit for inflation over time, so on your 20th year, if it's 2% inflation compounded, it'll be significantly feel significantly less. The number will be the same, but it will feel like less money. It will have less purchasing power. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think we all got to realize is we're all looking at this from the a spend not spend. We've got a fully appreciated 275 Main Street building, basically. We can perhaps that's the work of the bridge committee. We can perhaps band-aid it for a few years, but long story short is we'd have to spend if we're either going to do this or we're going to have to spend. We're going to have a new facility at some point. So really, it's not a matter of if we're going to do this. It's we've got to do it, in my mind, because you've got to have some kind of facility, some kind of pool, some kind of facility. In my view, unless you just close everything, and it doesn't appear that's a tenable proposition at this point. The public's looking for us to do something. So those are my 2 points. And again, to Alan's point, I don't think, we'll have to look at, where the dollars will come from and so forth. But I think this is going to be a necessary piece. And again, we can fund the piece that the province and the feds don't come in on, as we see fit. Thanks.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, Councillor Cunningham or Deputy Warden Cunningham's point on inflation is on time value of money is bang on. This does not contemplate that, nor does it contemplate the cost of inflation of doing nothing. So if every year that goes by, we know what happens with construction costs, and they have been particularly volatile in COVID. And so, with every year that goes by, these costs, it's not going to be cheaper. We know that construction costs escalate. And so this is really just like, it's meant to be designed as a very, very high level understanding of what the number might be. And there are there's a lot more work to be done to make these numbers accurate. And in fact, depending on how you wish to fund it as municipal units, your number could look drastically different than another based on your cost of borrowing or the use of gas tax or any other arrangement that you have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, very high level. Any other questions or comments on that? I'll scroll through. Hopefully, Steve, did you have your hand up as I went by, or? I see no more. So, Alan, do you have any more, or you completed that part?
I don't have any more, and certainly I can share this document with you, but understand that it is an early version of what would be required.
All right. Then we'll move on. Item 5.1.6, restating the goal. Madam CAO Brooks, where have we arrived and where do we want to be?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just going to go back to what we talked about. So we took a historical, the express lane trip through the history from Jeff. And just, I think that the Warden Cunningham did a good job of giving everybody a space for questions. But what I would recommend is if any of the committee members want some gaps filled in, reach out to other people on the team. We've got some long service team members on this file around the table. And I'm not one of them. I'm still new and still learning. But you know, definitely Jeff and Alain and I'm in particular have had their shoulder to the wheel on this almost since the beginning. So I'm feeling like we can say yes. Are we all kind of, we feel like, okay, we're a committee working together and we're all more or less on the same level on this? Okay. I think that we were successful and we learned through Duran's observations. I sensed through the engagement that the whole committee really leaned in on that and appreciated a lot of some of the finer points that Duran brought to the table, which are going to be critically important to the work of the new build subcommittee as we get down into the details. I think we did choose and define some programmable spaces. I'm just going to go to that particular document just to make sure what I've got there is agreeable with everybody. We talked about aquatics and East Hants version 1.2. For fitness, what I've got under a definition is, you know, square footage that provides for cardio and resistance training, open space for various free moving activities like yoga. And under description, I've got like weights, bikes, etc. As a starting point for the subcommittee, is everybody comfortable with that? I see a thumbs up. I'm not
I
hearing
could,
no.
if you want, maybe go into my notes and maybe provide you some definition of what is meant by fitness space and what I've seen for, we say cardio, circuit training, weight training, CrossFit space, you know, and studio space.
This is just me, Duran, but I think that would be really important to be bringing to the subcommittee table when you come.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So in terms of common spaces, I heard loud and clear from Councillor Dares that when it comes to foyer square footage, we really need to be living in the square footage and imagining how it's going to get used. We've talked about, in terms of the long-term vision of the Mariner Center, it being a community hub. So gathering spots, tables, chairs, things like that. I don't really have a description. And then we had a great conversation about indoor walking capacity. And what I think I heard was that's purpose-built square footage with, you know, 2 lanes of and the track of sufficient length or circumference to provide, and I don't have the adjective, but to provide a blank walking, jogging experience safely. So I guess I'm looking for confirmation from the group that the new build subcommittee more or less has a clear mandate to go back to with.
Victoria, common spaces, would that also include washroom facilities? Because there's nothing worse when you're to a hockey game and you're in intermission and for it doesn't matter, like I've gone to some humongous events down in the States with NASCAR where the washroom facilities just could not handle the capacity. So to be sure that's taken care of, because we're hoping the building's filled, whether it be swimmers and people in the arena, whether they're skating in arena 2 and there's a game going on in arena 1 in the building's full, like 2 or 3 toilets won't cover it.
John, in both of the previous designs that were done, the common area, which would include washrooms and so on, in one case it was over 18,000 square feet and in the other over 21,000 square feet. So I think that's come from different designers from different angles. And so I think that's reasonable to expect something of that magnitude.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a formula for that as well.
Yeah, There
But-
is, but I'll put it on the form so we don't forget, because one of the things I really liked about one of the learnings from Durham was the placement of the showers in the aquatics facility, and what was not just in terms of efficient use of square footage, but what was particularly interesting to me was the correlation between that and operating and maintenance costs.
Yes, absolutely. That was very interesting, that part. Go ahead, Duran.
I'm so glad to hear the conversation turn to practicalities and an ongoing cost of the operation. So I'd like to point out a couple of things. One is, as I've toured these facilities, these general managers almost shaking me. Make sure in your plan that there's considerable thought given to access, and they call it an access plan. And you literally have a plan just for how people come into the space and how people leave the space, and where you place your guest services. And that, for an example, Truro, the rec center, a beautiful space. But if you visited it, you know that their entry points are at opposing ends of the building, but their guest services counter is on the bottom floor in the middle of the building. And that's because the original design had the main entry coming right into that lower part of the building off the parking lot. But that's not what ultimately got built due to a decision on costs. So you've created a very awkward access, and they have one of the more attractive walking tracks, but they can't actually charge anything for it. It has to be free, because where their guest services and where their entrance is versus where the walking tracks is, they can't monitor it. So I just give you an example there on how important access is, especially for we're adding an aquatic center or fitness center, how people access that space and where our staff is positioned to control access has direct impact on our ability to generate revenue and safety and all the rest of it. Number two, on the practical piece, if I can, is getting into the guts of these buildings. And there's people on this call, I think, who can speak to it better. It's just efficiency. And so we've got 2 ice surfaces that consume a lot of energy to maintain. And everywhere I tour, when you put in a pool or an aquatic space that requires heating of that space, it gives off cold that can be used to offset the energy required to create ice. Ice creates heat, which can be used in the pool to offset the cost of heating the water. So those energy offsets, I hope that's, I apologize. It's been a while since I read the proposal, but if that's not in there, we should give consideration to that, because that will impact the ongoing cost of the facility if we don't consider all the efficiency opportunities there and the technologies available there.
Thank you, Duran. Any more?
John,
Yes, go ahead, Guy.
John, just for Durham, on the report, it was saying about the heat from the rinks, arenas to be used in the pool. It was in that report. I've read it a couple of times.
Great.
Victoria, you okay? I'm sorry, everyone.
Yep.
my
That's
phone-
okay. So I'm just going to finish wrapping up on the goals. So Alain did a really good job contextualizing, what kind of investments our community is asking us to make on their behalf. And I think it's really good information to start with and kind of understand where we're headed. And I particularly like the conversation around it's not going to get any cheaper to do this, and our community is looking for these services somewhere. So I think that helps the elected officials kind of understand in terms of the expectations on them in terms of stewardship. And then finally, confirming alignment. So which I think we've done as we've gone along. And I don't want to speak for the new build subcommittee, but I would suggest that as we communicate back up to this main committee, if we for some reason get off track and we misinterpret something, then that's the point of the main committee coming together, is to kind of bring it back on track. So I think I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair.
All right, is everyone happy with the process so far? Any more they'd like to add before we move on? Okay, I don't see any, so we'll move on. Item number 5.2, Expansion Committee Joint Press Release. As we've all heard, this has been of quite a bit of interest in not only some groups, but a lot of groups around all the Yarmouth County, for that matter, during the past municipal election. It's not only come, we've heard a lot from the swimming sides. We heard Steve Berry had mentioned a lot about the walking track portion. There's been a lot of the social aspects, community spaces and stuff like that. So I think it's prudent that we sit down and form some sort of a joint press release in this regards. On the work and the status where we're standing right now, because there is a lot of questions. Where are you guys at right now? Where are you moving to? Who sits on what? So I think it's prudent that we possibly move forward with something like that to let the community know that we're moving along. So what's everyone's thoughts on that? I see Guy with a thumbs up. I see Steve with a thumbs up. Trevor, just about everybody. Pam, I see your hand up.
Yeah,
So
can we, I'd like for the committee to see the press release before it goes out.
Oh, absolutely. It would be circulated since it's a joint committee of all three councils. It would go before all CAOs and at least the wardens, CAOs, deputy wardens, and stuff like that.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, if I can jump in there. Mike Carter helped us with a lot of the early comms pieces on this file, and he's probably got some of that in his toolbox. Just wondering, Jeff, if Mike would be available to help us out with this time.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. But I think we should release something pretty quick. So it would he be available, Jeff, to start that pretty quick, I guess? I know
so I think if for his benefit, maybe if we send him an outline of the key messages that we want to convey at this point, he can work with that.
Yep. Yep.
If I'd realized that was going to be a request, I could have had him participate, but this is being recorded. Is this going to be posted online so he can watch it, or?
Should be.
Should be.
Okay, so he'll have the advantage of watching at his leisure. So I guess if I'll just say if maybe Alana, Victoria, if you want to give point form bullets on key messages that you think are important to incorporate in a first draft, send those on through to Mike. I'll give him a heads up. He can watch the meeting and we'll try and get a first draft together as soon as possible.
My thought wouldn't be too extravagant, but just pointing out that we've met, the meeting committee's met, that we've appointed some new members, not to drown them. Sometimes less is more. And maybe possible dates if we decide when the bridge and the new builds committees are going to meet, just to let people know where we're standing right now. That'd be my thoughts.
John, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, I think just putting a really good positive spin on it and keeping it simple, because the more information you include, the more people are going to analyze it and, tear it apart. So I think a real nice, positive, brief message moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too extravagant. So are we all in agreement on that? I don't believe we need a motion or anything on that. I just see a whole bunch of thumbs up, so I guess that go by consensus. Any more on that item? Item 5.3, transparency. Mayor Pam Mood, you asked to have this on the agenda. The floor is yours.
I did. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 3 layers to this, and I don't know how we can figure this out unless we already have. But as you said earlier, I mean, the public is really on top of this. And they want to know what's going on a regular basis. It's important to all of us as elected officials. That whole story we ran on this, I don't have to sell anybody on that. So a couple, just 3 layers to it very quickly. I think when we were setting up the committees, I don't think there's one person on this call that wasn't saying, man, I just want to be on both committees, because we just want to know what's going on, and we should. So so there's that layer, that between committees, we have to make sure that we're always updated. I would go a step further in number 2 and say, with regard to councils, to make sure our councils are updated, because we can't, I mean, the 9 of us can make decisions, but we know our councils are going to make the decision to pay for it. So our councils somehow need to be updated on everything, and have all the information in front of them. And the third, and perhaps, you know, most important, is that public aspect, that the public really has a right to know what's going on. And you know, a press release is one thing, but I'm wondering, is there a place, and there probably is, except nobody's aware of it. Is there one spot, or can there be one spot where we can post all the minutes, this video, the reports, anything that's pertinent to what's going on that people keep asking us for? Is there a one-stop place that they can go? It's just, stuff gets lost in translation, and I guess and it could be just me, but I'm just a fan of everybody having all the information. We're not the FBI. This isn't Secret Service or anything here. So it's public information, and we need to start behaving like that. So I don't know how that works, if there is a spot that we put it. Duran?
I do see Victoria first, then Duran.
Sorry, John.
That's all right. I know it's a normal
habit.
habit. I do the same thing now too.
And I guess I would echo Pam's comment. You know, there's nothing more frustrating for a resident than wondering where to go look for what. And if you've got to go in more than one spot, do you have the whole picture and all that? And seems how this is all, you know, really all about the Mariners Center and growing that for the region. I can't say, but I think it'd be a good idea if the Mariners Center was willing to host a spot on their website for these pieces. And we could drive the traffic to the website, and then the things that the Mariners Center is up to anyway, while we're doing that, they might get some organic interest.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Duran, you have the floor.
No, Mr. Chair and Victoria, I agree. That's why I raised my hand as well. I think that so our admittedly our website is dated. It's expired. It's not mobile friendly. So there will be a website upgrade in the near future, but it does have the functionality. We can give it its own menu item on our main menu, and we can archive the documents and give it a mention. We can also ping our social media anytime there's a substantial meeting and point people with that link to our website. So Victoria, I think it's a great idea.
Your social media website, Duran, does that also have like does it have archives of like meetings and stuff like that? Like the mayor had mentioned something about a video link to this meeting. Usually a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people do use the social media. Is there something on your social media page that could be worked into quite easily, or is that more difficult than
I can look into giving this expansion committee a room or a space within our Facebook page, or we can simply make it part of our storyline or posts and the video link to the video included, but then permanently in a timeline sequence as we have these meetings and documents and minutes get finalized, posting them to a dedicated space on our website.
Yeah. My apologies. I'm the chairman. I'm not supposed to go in questions in front of anyone. I thought I seen Deputy Warden Nicole Albright have her hand up, so I apologize for that force of habit.
That's okay. No worries. I'm not that formal. I'm just wondering too if like the documents from tonight's meeting would be posted on there as well, because for me it's a good refresher too, and it was a lot. This was my first meeting, a lot of information to process, and we didn't have everything right in front of us. And I would like to be able to go back and look at some of these documents. So I'm wondering, could those be posted on there as well? Just wondering.
I don't know if I can answer that, but if, you know, I on the document storage, the answer is yes. Maybe other people can speak to what we can share and what's appropriate.
There's nothing here so far that's been in camera. Usually when we go in camera, that would be it. So Guy, I see your hand go up.
I would certainly like to see that it would be on the 3 units, I don't know if you'd call it their Facebook page or their web page, I guess. I think that would be, even if we have it duplicated in a couple of spots, this meeting I'm talking about. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns, Madam Mood? Are you happy with that, or is there more you'd like to add, or?
No, I'm good. I just want to make sure that everybody has access to the same information. And it's, again, it's easy for the 9 of us to or 12 of us, whatever it is now, to make decisions. But our councils ultimately foot the bill. So we need to be able to get that information to them as well.
I really like the idea of hosting it on the Mariner Center site, because that would eventually drive traffic. Well, if we're there, all of a sudden it pops up free skate or free space rental at this time, and say, hey, I could rent that, or birthday rental area, or just to catch just all the traffic that we can direct to the Mariner Center. Is the more the better, instead of, like, I don't know how many people follow it now, and if you could double your numbers, that's just a bigger chance of selling the service that we have there. So
I was thinking of making them go through a fundraising page to get to the expansion documentation, but are we allowed jokes? No.
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's been a long day for everybody. So yeah, absolutely. Anything to break the tension. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So we're done with that. We'll start working on that. Thank you very much, Mayor Mood. Item 5.4, Bridge of Service, CAO Muse, and I believe it was Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham that had asked to add pretty well the same thing. So since CAO Alain Muse put it there, I'll throw the floor to Alain.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think it's probably more of a political conversation. I just, you know, there was a lot of topics on the new building and the new expansion and in the discussion, and it seemed like a place that should also have a small space for the bridge and what we're dealing with here. I didn't have any particular item, and since Trevor has raised it, I would just suggest that Deputy Warden Cunningham is probably the best person to speak on that. Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah, I totally agree. Deputy Warden Cunningham, you have the floor.
Right, I asked that to be put on the agenda because I think, you know, we've got to certainly meet frequently and get the work done that needs to be done to accommodate the bridge. We don't currently have the service that's required for the community, so you know, there's lots to do in order to move that forward. And I'm hearing loud and clear from residents that they would like to have you know, that looked into and have a resolution sort of ASAP. So the other members of the committee are online, and I'm going to propose that we meet maybe sometime next Thursday or Friday. Is that, or does somebody? I mean, I'm not chairing it, obviously, but we do need to have perhaps a staff member could send out a poll for a meeting next week to Daniel, Steve, myself, and Guy, and we could arrange a meeting time either in person or online, if that's amenable to everybody else on the committee.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm the CAO charged with responsibility of supporting the bridge work. So I'll ask Lindsay. I'll delegate. No, I'll ask Lindsay if she will do a doodle poll of the 4 members. And once we have a date, we'll circulate it to everybody so that everybody has the opportunity, if they wish, to log in and I guess bear witness to the conversation at the very least.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. And looking forward to getting, rolling up the sleeves and getting to work on that file. Thanks.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the recommendations. There's a lot of work on both subcommittees, that's for sure. And people are asking that we get moving on it. So is there any more on that subject?
Not for me. I think the intentions were to put it on the table, and
Yep.
table it is, and movement we have.
All right, hey everyone, thank you. Item number 6, new business. Item 6.1, new build subcommittee.
I think, Mr. Chair, all we have there is to, the terms of reference require the subcommittees to bring their minutes to the main committee. And so the most recent meeting of the new build subcommittee minutes are there. And I think tonight we worked our way through what our pains were as a result of that last meeting that Pam was trying to lead us through in the best possible way. We struggled there a little bit, but so that's why they're there. I'm not clear on who approves them. I think the subcommittees approve their own minutes and they file them with this committee, I think is what it is. So they're there as a requirement in transparency.
Absolutely. And as the mayor alluded to in the transparency piece, we got to find a place to put that so people will be able to go back and have a timeline of things that's happened over the past. So I guess the next item on the agenda is the next meeting. This committee, I seen 2 hands go up right away, so I'm going to leave the floor open to Councillor Geeseret, then Mayor Pam Mood.
This doesn't have to do with the next meeting, and I'm sorry about that. I kind of missed a bit. I wanted to say something on the bridge committee. Whether I bring it here or it's brought to the subcommittee, I think I should bring it here. And here's my question: being fair or not fair, putting somebody on the spot or not on the spot, doesn't bother me a bit. And here's the question: for a subcommittee to get a bridge, are we all on board? Where should that question be brought up to? Because if we don't have everybody on board, what's the use of having a subcommittee on a bridge? So should that be answered here, or should that be answered on the subcommittee level for the bridge? And you know what I'm talking about. If there's people on board to open the old YMCA facility, you know, if we're not on board, what's the use of keeping on and planning? So should that be discussed here, or should that go to the subcommittee? I'll wait and listen to the other councillors. I think that should be settled before we move forward, because to me that would be a sticking point. What's the use of working on something if we only have 1 on board, 2 on board, you know, not the 3 on board? And I certainly entertain anybody that wants to speak on it. Thank you.
Deputy Warden Cunningham.
Right, I'm new, but I'll go out on a limb. I think that, you know, if we're going to meet next week, I think, and this speaks to the meeting of this committee, I don't think this committee should meet. I think this committee should meet not too long after we meet next week. I think we should have a 2 or 3 hour allotment of time next week for the subcommittee to meet, and certainly come back to you with the plan to move forward in terms of collecting information or you know, a more detailed plan. But in any event, I think we need to meet, and I think we need to give you an update, you know, in the near term as to where we are, and perhaps we could put that very question on the agenda. You know, do we feel we can do that work with that smaller group, or is it something that's better handled by the whole of this committee? But again, those are the terms of reference, and I think we should have that initial meeting and move forward from there.
Okay, I seen Pam was next, and I seen Councillor Allen afterwards.
Yeah, I might even be out of line here, but I thought that we were going to do the committee chair so somebody could call a meeting, but maybe that just happened.
Well, since the committee has no chair, that's pretty well what's going on right now, from my understanding. we can set the date of the next meeting, and their first order of business would be to elect a chair and
Yep.
vice chair.
That was my question. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That was my understanding. If I'm wrong, please someone try to correct me. Councillor Allen.
So I'm gonna try and reference what he was just saying. I'm gonna try, Guy. I'll do my best.
Yeah, right on.
I think the major misconception is that all three of us are not in favor of a bridge, because we are. We are all in favor of a bridge. I don't think our bridge committee, I'm not exactly sure when the bridge got decided. I sit on the bridge committee, and as of our last meeting, we hadn't decided what our bridge was. And this is the big problem that's going on right now, especially on social media and with the community and everything. There were different ideas put out there, some probably better than others. But I think everybody's on board with bridging. Our community needs, we need programs out there right now. I'll say it right here. I've asked, we need programs so we can find the facilities to meet those programs. If the facilities were at, somebody's going to correct me here, but if it was at 275 Main Street and that was the option, then our bridge committee would be working hard to try and facilitate that action. As of now, the other ideas that have been put out there, as far as I know, and maybe Jeff can attest to this, nothing has been looked at other than 275 Main Street. I know that it's there right now. I know there's been an assessment done. There's been work put forward for this. And I mean, I guess that's great. The town owns it. The town is more than happy to do what they want with their building. But as far as the bridge committee, we haven't met in a while. I know there was a scheduled meeting for the 1st of December, but unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but Deputy Mayor Mooney had not reoffered. So, and I was fishing, and I know we tried to reschedule and then new counselors. But to be straightforward, I don't think anybody doesn't want a bridge. There's no one on our council that does not want a bridge, Guy. There's no one on yours, I don't believe, and I don't think there's anyone on the town that doesn't want a bridge. But I thought it was our due diligence to make sure that the bridge we are going to present is not only providing as much programming as we can, but we have to be fiscally responsible at the same time for everybody in our community. We have 23,000 residents, and we've got to do what's best for all 23,000. And but there's services that are required, and we need them in our community right now. We realize that, you realize that, everyone does. So I think the sooner we can start getting together as a bridge committee and working again, the sooner we can get to where we got to go. Did that help you at all, Guy?
Daniel, great.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any more? So Guy, does that answer your question or concerns or?
It answers some of my questions, not my concerns, but certainly my question and what Daniel said makes complete sense. I agree with that. And yeah, we've got to get like the numbers out there to see what it's going to be like, so we can all say, yes, yeah, this makes sense, or yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you, Daniel, Trevor.
Yeah, it boils down to whatever the bridge committee decides, they feel is the best option, whether it's 275 Main Street or something else. It's going to come through this committee here, then it's going to go to councils for final ratification. For our council, we want to follow the terms of reference to is the best we certainly can, and we've been sticking to that. And we've been non-committal as of now. It's only because we want to see some figures. But we certainly want to be part of the solution, not the problem.
Thank you, John.
I'm sorry, everyone. I'm starting to get a little bit dizzy. I hope this is just about over. This time of day, I start to wind right down. It's been a busy couple days. So is there any more on the agenda? The date of the next meeting of this committee, I guess it's going to be determined until we can get the new build committee and the bridge committee, and because all that work is done down there, then it comes up to this main committee. So as soon as I get any information from either subcommittee, I'll certainly be calling a meeting. Hopefully it won't be too long. I know the public wants us to get to work, and I want to thank each and every one of you for, it's been an interesting meeting on Zoom. Hopefully soon we'll be able to get together and in this pandemic will be behind us, because I certainly miss the face-to-face meeting. So I guess unless someone wants to set a date that we tentatively meet, it's up to you. Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I think we need to tentatively set that date. If the bridge is meeting next week, if you need the new build to meet next week as well, we can do that. And then the following week, this group come together. Then it's done. We're not waiting another month. It's been 4 or 5 months. And
All right, then I'll propose this date then. So if next week they're going to be meeting, I know our council is meeting on February the 10th. The next week would be the week between the 15th and 18th, since we are a Thursday. How about we meet the same time, 3 o'clock, tentatively on February the 18th? Tentatively, if there's nothing,
As long as it's
Councilor
over before 6, because I have, I'm chair of recreation and we have our recreation meeting that night at 6 o'clock.
yeah, it shouldn't be this long. There was a lot
Okay.
of preliminary work.
Yep.
Gil, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, we could impose upon, through Jeff, impose upon Lindsay to also send out a doodle poll for the new build committee.
So we'll tentatively set this date. The next meeting shouldn't be that long, because it'd be recommendations coming from the subcommittees and just updates on the works, where the work is at, and maybe some questions for because this is the main committee of everybody. So it also give the bridge committee members some questions if the new build committee meets, and then they can have questions and vice versa. So, and then if there's any recommendations to be forwarded to council. So thank you, everyone. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Allen, to have seconded by Deputy Mayor Steve Barry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Reminded. Thank you very much, everyone. You all have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Here.
Great job, everyone.
Thanks, guys.